All right, Friday morning, OTB AM, Adrian with you this morning. Very good morning to you. Welcome along to the show. Owen Shane is off in his jollies. He's off at some sort of music festival in Europe that's as specific as I can be. So more Treasa and Cheallaigh, good morning to you.
Good morning, Martin. What can you do?
Tama Gama, August Neil, en Gaelga or Be Agam.
I love the pressure I put on you guys. I just throw a little bit of Gaelga, just a look of fear in the eyes.
I managed to get to sort of utter or stumble through 4 or 5 words there.
To be fair, more than most.
Which is very impressive. No, my Irish is terrible, and it's something that, as the old cliche goes, I must do something about at some point or another, and probably never will. But
no, you won't. I don't believe you.
How's it going?
Good.
Thanks very much for getting out so early on a Friday morning coming into us.
This is actually a lie-in for me because I was doing exams up until the end of last week, so it was going to bed at 1 a.m. and getting up at 5 to study cram. I felt like a new parent. I don't know how you guys do it. My eyes were dripping. You know the tiredness where you feel you can't open your eyes. They're running with just fatigue and torture and wanting to die. That was me. So
given your general schedule, Treasa, you're studying to be a doctor and sports journalism, and I think many other things on the go as well. Don't feel that you need to sort of explain that we're in some way more adequate. That's
no, you are.
I can assure you.
At least I can turn off the alarm.
So you've had an interesting enough week. I'm assuming your Davy Fitz fallout. Is that the correct way to describe it? I don't know if people have been in contact with you about it, but the interview last weekend.
People have been in contact. What I will say is, and I said this to Davy as well afterwards, I would never, ever intentionally go out to hurt anybody's feelings. It is not my bag. And I did contact him because if he felt that I did hurt him, I would absolutely apologise for that. It was a robust discussion, I think is how we'd call it. And I hope he does know that I do respect him as a manager. I do respect him as a person. And you know this as well, many's the time I've been in here defending him when people are saying terrible things. I say, no, because at the end of the day, behind the act is a gentleman. He is a nice person. I probably pressed some buttons on Sunday that I didn't actually intend on pressing. People, in fairness, the reaction was very positive toward me, which, okay, that's easier than getting abused. But at the same time, I think perhaps maybe people didn't realise what had gone on that sideline. Was he wrong to encroach? Absolutely. There's no two ways about that. And especially at the time, we don't know what the officials saw, didn't see, what they heard, didn't hear at that moment in time post-match either, which I think is a bigger issue we need to be discussing. We should know what officials are seeing and hearing. I'd love to see the GAA go the way of rugby, where you actually hear the referee, and it might be easier to understand why situations are being made, decisions are being made. Was he right to be in a rage? Yes. After what had happened, because we saw one of the Wreck brothers down on the ground. I didn't see how it happened, but I could tell it was absolutely off the ball, and I tell he got in a wallop because I was watching the ball action. So you can see why a referee would obviously miss something like that. Yeah. But he's supposed to be assisted by linesmen and all these type of things as well. So was he right to be angry? Yes. Yeah. Should he have encroached the line? No. Is he the only manager who does it? Absolutely not. Does he seem to give more than the most? More punishment than most?
Is it more of a hurling thing than a football thing, do you think, that sort of encroaching? I know Philip Lanigan, we'll touch on it in a minute, but it seems like, because hurling is such an intense sport, things tend to move pretty quickly, there might be more of a likelihood to, you probably wouldn't even notice it half the time. And the regulations are pretty loose, nobody's generally sort of stepping over, and I remember being at games, the famous Wexford game in the Leinster Championship, it's probably 10 or 12 years ago now, where Wexford beat Kilkenny. Brian Cody was behind the Kilkenny goal when the Wexford ball went in at the last minute and he was down on his knees. What the hell was the manager doing over there?
Well, this is it. And funnily enough, one of my friends who is from Kilkenny, she sent me a text message on Sunday night after hearing the interview, and she said, you never see Cody getting sent to the stand. Yeah. And he does do similar things.
Who's going to be brave enough? Is that the inference?
But this is it. But you'd wonder, it has to be one rule for one manager. Yeah. So why wouldn't Davy encroach the line when other managers are doing it? But why is he the only person getting sent to the stand? Was it right that he was sent to the stand? Yes. Why aren't the rest? Now, is that a reflection? Was Johnny Murphy, was he perhaps refereeing to the absolute rule book, which people were also complaining about because he was very whistle happy? There was a lot of whistle blowing. The game never really flowed. Was that the referee's fault, or was it the fact that two teams were playing under par that day? And I think perhaps, I can't put myself in managers' positions, but I think perhaps that's why both managers were a little bit cranky post-match, because they both knew their teams underperformed, despite their best efforts. I think actually Davy's team had the better performance because they recovered well from what looked like a million wides in the first half. It took them over 20 minutes to get their first score, despite the fact that they were in charge. You could argue then Galway managed to come back. Galway managed to go in the better at that first half, despite the fact they didn't really play at all. So you can understand why all those emotions would churn up together. And there's so much pressure on managers now.
You're being very reasonable, Máire Treasa, I have to say.
I have to be reasonable because that's my job. I was trying to be reasonable that day, and that's why I always, like, whenever managers do go off on one at officials, I've always done this, and anybody who looks back at all my work will always say that I'll always play devil's advocate because we don't know what the referee saw or heard. We don't know what he or she was told by a lines official. So until we hear that from them, I cannot allow managers to just say whatever they think about an official, because it's not fair. They might be right, but I think it's only fair to give a right of reply at the very least. I thought you
respectfully challenged it, but look, that's my...
I thought I did too. Look, I'm not perfect. Yeah. I'm sure many a time I've annoyed people. It doesn't sit well with me. I actually don't like when people do yell at me. I'm a lover, not a fighter, and I get a bit taken aback by it. And I have to say, since Sunday night, it has bothered me. I was out for dinner on Sunday night in Galway, and I was in T-Taff trying to have a few drinks, and actually people kept coming up, and I wasn't comfortable with it because it's not my style. As you would know, I think most people would know me. I tend to go around with a big silly grin on my face, and like at the end of the day, it is just sport, and I know a lot is riding on it. But nobody lives or dies by it. And in general, managers remember that as well. But in the heat of battle, it's really serious because, especially the hurling championship at the moment, one bad day at the office can crock your whole summer.
I didn't think it merited... look, it's just, again, my view, but I didn't think it merited the reaction that, like, it could have been dealt with in a much more reasonable fashion. Actually, was my main thought about it afterwards, that there was... there can be an element of... And I could think that you probably touched on it there a moment ago, but just in terms of the position of the season, and it's a few games in, the pressure is beginning to be properly turned up at this stage. And, like, it's everything that these managers and players have been working to over the last... I mean, it's supposed to be 5 months, but whatever, I suppose 6 or 7 months, whatever it might be. And maybe that makes people do sort of strange things and that they maybe wouldn't do out of the heat of battle. But yeah, I just definitely thought that it could have been maybe more of a reasoned conversation or response.
It could have. I mean, of course, Davey could have said, "You're asking silly questions now, stop, let's move on." Because he could have, but he didn't. And maybe I wouldn't either after
Well, you
being
wouldn't
through.
have. If that was me, I'd be saying, "Oh, well, hang on a second. We're not moving on to those terms."
Well, actually, I would have moved on at that point too. I wanted him to explain to me exactly what happened to get wreck on the ground, because I didn't see it. Davey clearly saw it, and lots of people in the stadium would have seen it. I didn't, because nobody can see everything at the time. But he did walk away at that point. But again, like I said, like, I have a relationship with Davey that goes back a long way, a nice, cordial, professional relationship. We've had our rows over the years, but we always seem to make up. So I hope we do again on this one, because, like I said, like, the heat of battle, not them saying you forgive a lot. I mean, in Davey's eyes, I did him wrong on Sunday by asking him those questions. And maybe he's right. Maybe, you know, we look back at the end of summer, people may say I was a bit harsh on him. I don't know. Because I was in the heat of battle as well. I was after coming down off a press box, and you're running and you're trying to get in and you're trying to grab hold of a manager. Like, when you think about it, he didn't have to talk to me at that point, but he chose to talk to me. And then he may say, well, why are you rubbing me up the wrong way? That's his choice to believe that too. I didn't mean to rub him up the wrong way, but I never mean to rub anybody up the wrong way.
And look at,
but I think a journalist's job sometimes is to rub people up the wrong way, to ask questions. Like, I try and make a point of asking questions that you hear people in the stands talking about, because you are the people's conduit. And sometimes managers might not like that.
So look at your Waterford this weekend.
Yes, and hopefully no rows. Walsh Park again on Sunday. They're playing Limerick in another really important game.
Really important, yeah.
Yeah, especially for Waterford. Well, for Limerick as well, but Waterford more so, because they're already on two losses on the trot. So they will really want
it's just a brilliant format, isn't it? Like, it's just...
For us.
Yeah. Big
Not
time.
For them, which kind of helps me understand these managerial explosions.
They love it too, they really do.
They do when they're on the right side of it. When they're not, like, imagine being Pádraig Fanning looking into this weekend and like John Kiley, All-Ireland champions, and they've lost to Cork the week before, who people were saying, oh, they're off the boil a little bit. But I mean, that's ridiculous to say that, because there's nothing between these Munster Championship teams. The puck of a ball a lot of the time. I know that's a cliche, but there's a reason why it's there.
That game almost proved it, didn't it? It was, you're 100% right. People were looking at that Limerick team conversely as well and saying, sure, nobody can beat this. Definitely not Cork. So.
But when you think about, like, last year's All-Ireland final, again, it came down to between the puck of a ball between Galway and Limerick, and Joe Canning single-handedly brought Galway back into that All-Ireland final last year and nearly brought them to an equaliser, despite the fact that, and like, he was hobbling around on one leg by the end of that.
Having said all that, you're tipping Limerick, I presume.
You'd have to.
Yeah.
You would have to. But at the same time, you could argue Waterford, this is the third game, this is a game at home. And like they're under a new managerial team, so it is going to take a while for things to gel in. And you could tell when I was watching them a few weeks ago when they were there playing against Clare that Waterford were trying new things, and you could argue, is the Championship the time to try new things? But because this is the first year, they didn't really have a choice. So while it may not work out for them this year, I hope that they do get the time to settle and work hard over the winter.
We'll see how that pans out over the next little while. Here's a bit of a flavour. It's a packed show for you this morning. Here's a bit of a flavour of what's coming up between now and 9:30. We're going to let you know what's happening in the back pages of the newspapers in just a few moments. Eamonn Fitzmaurice is going to discuss all things Kerry this weekend, the former Kerry manager, as Kerry get their championship underway against Clare this weekend. So we'll have all of his thoughts and reflections on that coming your way just after 8 o'clock. We're going to preview the Champions League final. Martin Lipton of The Sun is going to give us the Tottenham angle on that. Most people tipping up Liverpool for that game, so we'll get Martin Lipton's thoughts on that. That is a little bit later on. Johnny Sexton is live in studio this morning, and that's going to be our main feature interview of the morning, and that's going to be happening around 8:30. We'll get all of his thoughts on the season just gone, and obviously it's not an insignificant year in the world of rugby, so we're going to get his little thoughts ahead to the World Cup, but I'm sure as well, and thoughts on other things as well. If you have, by the way, any questions for Johnny, get them into us on the hashtag OTB AM, or drop your comments or thoughts into the Facebook feed or on YouTube. John Duggan is going to drop by. He's got some sports memorabilia. He's already been tweeting about that. Check out his Twitter feed. Tottenham fan is our John, as you'll know if you're a regular viewer to OTB AM. So he's going to be coming in around 9 o'clock, and the sports news as well with Neil Tracy. So that's what's coming up this morning. Right now it's time for the papers. Going to kick you off here with the Irish Independent, and a picture on the back page here of the Ireland under-21s against the Ireland senior team at training this week, and much has been made of this one because the Irish under-21s beat the senior team in this training match, and everybody's been taken a little bit by surprise by it. And but I have seen Kevin Gaban tweeting to say that this is standard stuff, that actually this is what tends to happen all the time, that nobody should be all that
not
surprised about it. But there we go, there's a bit of a big challenge going in training there. Total disrespect, coach hits out at Team Taylor in hotel row. It's Sean McGoldrick, who's in New York for the big fight this weekend. We'll give you more details on that in just a few moments, but a nice little sideline bubbling under ahead of Katie Taylor's big fight this weekend. And Madrid poised to launch a €120 million bid for Eden Hazard. So this is finally some meat in the bones of that story that we've been hearing will happen. It looks as if it may be a step closer now. And 4 debutants for Kerry as well, writes Cullen Keyes here. That's the back page of the Irish Independent. You've got the Mail, I think.
The Mail, yeah, and just interesting you mentioned that game, because the headline there is embarrassed. I think it's a great headline. Worry for Mick as Kenny's kids shock Ireland. They already got a new names with Busby Babes, now we have the Kenny kids. And a picture of Rory McIlroy as well, as he faces his struggle to make Ohio cut. So yet again, it's people talking about Rory McIlroy's form, and O'Donoghue returns to form lethal Kerry attack.
Yeah, he scored a 75 overnight, so not an amazing start for him. The Irish Examiner, meanwhile, it's a bumper edition really. If you're looking ahead to the Champions League final this weekend, it's very much your one-stop shop today. 12 pages in total on the Champions League inside the Irish Examiner this morning, and that's Harry Kane and Mo Salah on the front page there. Whether Harry Kane will play or not remains to be seen. We'll get Martin Lipton's thoughts on that a bit later on. And Derek McGrath saying the return of Brick Walsh will bring infectious character and presence to Waterford, so maybe they will get it done over Limerick this weekend. It's the Irish Examiner.
The Herald, following on from Sean McGoldrick's story and Katie Taylor, farmer's daughter will test Katie to her limit. That is a great photo of Katie there, and it's an article explaining us about Delphine, because a lot of us probably wouldn't have heard a lot about her, and just going through, she's had a hard life. It's you know, as in she's had to work hard to work through, like most boxers. And I thought it was really interesting. On the inside as well, we might go into it later, I thought Kieran Whelan has a very good article about James Horan and the Mayo vehicle. But I think we do love talking about Mayo. They'll still be there or thereabouts.
Yeah, and they are the gift that keeps on giving, obviously.
They are,
year
thankfully.
The Irish Daily Star, meanwhile, this morning, it's big boots to fill. If Owen was here, he'd probably be calling that one tab of the morning. This is Philippe Coutinho, the man to replace Eden Hazard at Chelsea. Maybe he's on his way back to the Premier League, writes Paul Brown there. Duffy not doubtful for Dane, so a bit of a boost for Mick McCarthy there. And Comer aiming for the Super 8s. This is Damien Comer at the Super Value launch yesterday, saying that he ain't going to make it for the Connacht final, but aiming to get back for the Super 8s.
The Mirror, we also have another headline there about Philippe Coutinho. He'll fill Eden's boots, boom, boom. And also a photo here of Sadio Mane. I will never quit sexy reds, apparently.
The Telegraph, meanwhile, the photograph here is of Ben Stokes from the World Cup yesterday, the England fielder. I saw this clip on Twitter yesterday and it was like, oh, you must watch this. It's the greatest cricket thing you'll have ever seen, was the loose sort of headlines that have cropped up across a lot of them. I had to watch it a few times and slow it down and sort of see where exactly this may be the greatest catch of all time. Was I think the headline.
Have they
from
seen
some
hurling
sort of reputable source. You could apply that to everything, right? But I mean, it was good. I'm not saying it wasn't good, and I'm sure if you're a cricket nut, you'd be thinking it was the most amazing thing that ever happened. It was an incredible catch. You can kind of get some of the sense of it there, but just it was the most incredible catch of all time. Had me scratching my head a bit. An audience with Jurgen Klopp, Jamie Carragher's brilliant interview, it writes here at the top, and there's a couple of page spread in the middle there, Jamie Carragher in conversation with Jamie Klopp. Like, it's not bad. Brilliant. I'm not sure about, but it's not bad.
Okay. We have The Sun. We have Benfica's Felix's big photo here of him, but I prefer the little headline at the side, which I thought was very interesting. Klopp deals out hairdryer. Virgil van Dijk revealing the shouting and screaming which got Liverpool to the Champions League final. And I never would have visualise Jurgen Klopp as a hairdryer person, so who knows, there might be things about Jurgen we need to learn yet. I just thought it was very interesting because you always saw him as very reasonable as an individual.
Yeah. Well, when he was out on the pitch afterwards, clapping hands with everybody and clapping everybody in the back.
Yeah.
Doesn't look like the Fergie type character. The Irish Times, meanwhile, it's Hurling the lead here with Jackie Turrell. Limerick need to recognise that hype is the devil. Strong stuff from Jackie Turrell there on that point we were just discussing their game against Waterford this weekend. And Sean Moran writing that determined Brogan insists he can still contribute to Dublin's cause. Some interesting stuff from Bernard Brogan this morning, saying that it would have been very easy for him to hang up the boots at the end of last season for the minimal role that he played, and he hasn't played a huge role so far this season, but at 35 years of age, like, I'd be hanging around for the five in a row.
Oh yeah, like, you'd have to take me out there on a stretcher while that was still alive.
Reading his quotes, it's like, it's not really about that. There's not what he said, but reading between the lines, it doesn't feel as if it's really about that it's like there's a bit of redemption there. There's a bit of, I don't want to go out like what happened last year. I still feel I've spoken to the management team. They insist I have something to offer. I think I have something to offer. But I mean, in the background.
That's always there, obviously. But Jim Gavin, of all people, a bit like Brian Cody, he wouldn't have Bernard Brogan there unless he felt he had something to offer. So there's something there. But yeah, the drive for five, they're never going to say it out loud. Why would they? That would be sacrilege to say it out loud, especially to people like us. But it has to be there. I mean, wouldn't it keep you there?
Oh, listen, I mean, a half of one I'd be happy with, you know.
Yeah, exactly. So you'd keep it up. The Irish Daily Star. We have here, work your backside off. I love all these tabloid puns. Duffy not doubtful for Danes. That's about Shane Duffy and him sitting out the closed doors game. And big boots to fill, Philippe Coutinho again there. And
my favourite story, obviously the morning's repeater here in The Guardian. It's Ben Stokes' catch yesterday, the same photograph. Everybody's agreed apparently that this is the photograph that best captures Ben Stokes. There probably was a better one, to be honest with you, because he was at full reach at some point or another. It was kind of an over-the-shoulder catch. I'm really badly describing.
You're really good at painting it here.
Happened with this catch yesterday. Check it out on Twitter. It's the best thing I can say to you. But out of this world, writes Ali Martin.
And my last pop here is the Times Ireland edition, and we have under-21 show senior side how it's done. Fitzgerald will leave Munster. That's about Gareth Fitzgerald. He's leaving his role as Munster chief executive. And back me and I'll stay. Sarri tells Chelsea.
All right, that's what's happening on the back pages of your newspapers this morning. There's a couple of them here that we want to get into in a little bit more detail. We mentioned Jamie Carragher meets Jurgen Klopp, obviously ahead of the Champions League final this weekend, and it was the first piece that I opened this morning. I thought, Jamie Carragher, brilliant interview with Jurgen Klopp. There's nothing else I need to do today other than read this piece because it's going to be magical. And it's not bad. Like, Jurgen Klopp has this incredible knack of positioning himself outside of the thing that he's absolutely central to. That's one of the things that most impresses me about the man, that he has this, you can assume that he's absolutely obsessed with what he's doing, but he also somehow has that capacity just to sit outside it a little bit and gaze into it. And it's been a whole bunch of stuff this week. He did a piece on, I saw on Channel 4 yesterday, where he'd been talking about Brexit, essentially. And it's a topic he's spoken about before, and in some respects says that it's not something that he's all that comfortable to talk about, but actually speaks about it really well. And just said how detrimental the entire thing is, and from a German point of view, we're right behind this European thing. Everybody needs to back it. We're much better when we're all in this together. And it was just so sensible. Like, it wasn't ranty, and it wasn't shouty, and it wasn't preachy. It was just very sensible conversation. I mean, I sound like I'm surprised by that. I'm not, but you know, for somebody in his position, it would be much easier to say, listen, you're asking me a question about Brexit. It's the Champions League final week. I've spoken to the topic before. You're just trying to get a quote. Let's just leave it and move on and talk about the game. But he didn't. He probably engaged in it.
And wouldn't it be much
really
easier to talk about Brexit than talk about the Champions League final?
Maybe it would be.
If I was in his shoes.
Maybe he's doubled.
Yeah.
Double bluffed us here. Some of the stuff that the interview is grand. Like, it's not bad. It's given the two positions of club legend and current club manager, I maybe would have thought I'd get a little bit more. You get a real sense of Jurgen Klopp, the football man, I suppose would be the thing I might say out of it, that he's talks about as a 7-year-old how he was obsessed by football, and his mother would put him in the bath and to be whenever there was a major game. I don't know what he was doing in the bath for the major games. I don't know. I initially thought that it was so she could distract him while she went to watch the game, was my initial thought. And I'm still not 100% sure about what he was doing in the bath, but that's where he was.
Maybe she was very Germanic and that was bath time, and therefore it didn't matter what was happening. On. You had to have your bath.
I like to think that she wanted to distract herself and putting the kid in the bath for an hour and a half, which again is what it says. I mean, it's, you know. So yeah. Anyway,
is that what you do when you're trying to watch football? You put the kids in the bath?
No, I realised that. No, I just try and let them sort of continue to entertain themselves is my general sort of outlook, and trying to get. It's very difficult with the younger one who's only 6 months, but the elder lad.
I mean, the younger one can't get into the bath alone yet. What kind of children are you rearing?
Yeah. But I realised that I was a bit too. I was watching a game in the last month, and I realised I was a little bit too into it when the child of 2 years and 3 or 4 months was running around the front room saying, F's sake, F's sake, F's sake. Not as politely as that. Oh, where did he pick that up from? Anyway, back to Jurgen Klopp.
Creche, obviously.
Yeah, creche, definitely. Yeah, that he doesn't go to. He says about Liverpool here and the just obviously the everything that's going on there at the minute in terms of what he's developing. He says it can be a golden era, and for me it is already. Who connected to Liverpool can't be happy? Who can't love what we're doing? Because step by step we're coming closer to everything. Okay, we didn't do it again in the league because of City, but we're again in a final, and it's still very positive. There's a lot of that conversation about City and how difficult it is it is to get past them, and like in some way it's a bit defeatist because it's, well, they're better than us and by rights they should win it, is essentially what he's saying here. But I'm assuming that, to your point about the hairdryer treatment internally, that internally it's a significantly different message.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. And I suppose if you go out with that defeatist attitude, why bother? So obviously that's not what they believe internally, because if Liverpool believed that as a team and as a manager, they wouldn't have finished second to City this year. They'd be well down. Yeah,
so we'll see how it'll be. It will actually, to be fair, be fascinating to see how it plays out even next season, and some of that might be dictated by what happens at the transfer window as well. Just one other quote from this: when I came to Liverpool, he said there was a mood and a feeling where the people thought we can get Klopp. I was not thinking like that. I was thinking at that moment that every manager in the world would run to Liverpool, and I am ready. I think he's doing himself a disservice there, because I'm not sure at that time that everybody in the world would have been running. Certainly not every top manager would have been running to Liverpool. Like, he talks about the fact that he, in his words, early in the piece says, we're now, you know, without debate, one of the top 5 or 6 teams in Europe. And it seems like such a stupid thing to say, given the fact that they're in the Champions League final. But actually, would you consider Tottenham to be in the top 5 or 6 clubs in Europe? Like, you probably wouldn't when it starts next season.
Despite the fact of where they are.
You probably wouldn't, you know. Yeah. So I think he's done an incredible job. And I'm not sure that people would have been flocking to that Liverpool job when he went to it, you know.
No, and funny, I'm just racking my brains there. I can't remember. Who else was mentioned at the time? I can't remember. I just remember waking up one morning and seeing his name linked to it, thinking, oh, yeah, that's kind of cool.
There probably would have been some of the usuals. Jose has been linked there from time to time.
Yeah.
God, I couldn't think of a worse fit for Liverpool than
he
Jose
could not.
Mourinho.
No. Klopp suits Liverpool. He suits Anfield. He suits the Liverpudlian mindset. He just understands the people up there. He just gets it, and he understands everything they've been through. Yeah. I love him. I think he's great.
He could be there for 20 years.
He's my dream interviewee.
We flash forward to 6 months when
are you guys sending me over to interview Jurgen?
You know, yeah.
And I'll just sit there and go, oh, Jurgen.
So he's like, listen, I ain't agreeing to this. That's not happening. A couple of other stories that we want to touch on. One here, Sean McGoldrick, who's in New York for the big fight this weekend at Madison Square Garden. Total disrespect. Coach hits out at Team Taylor in hotel row. So it seems that for world title fights that opponents are generally not booked into the same hotel, which my initial thought was, well, like, why the hell not? What difference does it make? Like, frequently these hotels, particularly in cities like New York, can have 15,000 bedrooms in it, and actually they'll probably never see each other, and who the hell cares? But it seems like it's not what's done, but it was by mistake on this occasion. And what they did was they shipped Delphine out of the hotel. So there was already a bit of power play. I think it's great, to be honest, is what my main thought about this, that a little bit of needle before the fight does nobody any harm. But Delphine's manager, who's also her trainer, claimed in an interview with the Belgian press that the Taylor camp had insisted that they move. So they said, listen, we're quite happy here. You need to shunt her on up the road. He had described the move as totally disrespectful, claimed that the psychological warfare had begun, considering the Taylor camp knew that she'd been staying at that hotel for quite some time. But Brian Peters, who's Katie Taylor's equivalent, had said that there was a clause in their contract with Matchroom which stipulated that she stay in a different hotel to Pursoon. And
it's great psychological warfare, because elite athletes at that level, everything is planned down to the last half inch. So you've packed up your bag, you've arrived at your hotel, you've unpacked it, you've put things in order. You were messing with the order of their mind when you do that.
And also, she's coming over on me now. You know, but I mean, that you can flip that. You can say they're all against me. Even my own
that doesn't work though.
Me.
I'm blue in the face telling people this does not work.
Because it's like
there's no psychological research out there, one way, shape or another, that they're all against us. They wrote us off.
Millwall, they all hate us and we don't care. That sort of thing. Yeah,
it might be different if they all hate us and we don't care. That's kind of different to they're all against us and we'll show them. Okay. And I'm blue in the face trying to tell managers this. Nobody listens to me. Maybe they're right, I don't know.
So yeah, look, I think it's a great little wrinkle of a line and lead into that fight. Delphine, you'd mentioned her story there. She's a police officer and has had to take holidays for this fight, and is
it's not easy on her.
Matchroom have gone to the I find it funny, but Matchroom have gone to the effort of saying that she's gone to a much better hotel. This hotel that she's gone to, I mean, this is where they've literally said in the piece, this is where Eddie Hearn is staying.
So, well, you know, if he's staying there.
Nothing else needs to be said about it. Another piece that we have already slightly touched on was in the Mail, which you might have there, more Treasa. Philip Lanigan writing about, it is about the David Fitzgerald stuff, but just that managers need to stay off the pitch. And this would be something that you could actually legislate for in a quite straightforward fashion, that, you know, you come on the pitch, you're going to get sent off.
Yeah, simple as.
Simple as. Which everybody understands the rules. And at that point, like, that's probably useful for managers.
Yeah.
All right, okay. Well, I understand now. So I won't do that again.
Well, they know it. Yeah, they know it. I'm just going through. Philip Lanigan has a good kind of lowdown here in the incident, and he has a lowdown of the discussion that followed on the Sunday game that evening. And he quotes Anthony Daly saying, "We all lose the rag, but you can't go on the field, especially after the league match in 2017 and the suspension." That was, of course, when Davy went in against Tipperary. Maybe engaged the fourth official outside the line, and so the case of the prosecution rested. So they're talking through, but basically it all comes back down to. And he mentions, like, for example, in the Ulster Senior Football Championship, Armagh manager Kieran McGeeney somehow escaped punishment for meeting Downs Kevin McKernan with the shoulder as opposing players and management mingled in the same area, readying themselves for extra time. Even though the rulebook explicitly mentions the prospect of an 8-week ban for any type of physical interference with an opposing player or team official. So you can see why the Davy Fitzgeralds feel aggrieved.
Oh yeah,
because they're just doing what everyone's doing, but and only a few people are being singled out.
Like, if you remove the personalities from it, it just needs to be black and white.
Yeah.
Like, there's no
but there's so much about the GAA that should be black and white but isn't.
I know, yeah.
And maybe that's the beauty of it. Except for the fact now I think it's become too serious. Too much is riding on these games now for stuff like this to be happening for one person and not another.
To legislate more clearly, or maybe, as you say, it's already legislated for, it just needs to be acted on.
Yeah. One
other story that we wanted to touch on briefly from the Herald, I think that...
Kieran Whelan's column. Brave man, because it takes a brave person to say anything, not even against Mayo, but to query certain things, you know. And his headline is, "Too late for Horan to twist, so he'll plough on." And then the sub-headline, "Mayo should have purged some of team as Gilroy did with Dubs." And Kieran Whelan's crux of this argument is that he's wondering, is this Mayo team under James Horan 2.0, are they like the Dublin team of the early 90s that eventually plough on and win that hard-earned All-Ireland? Or are they like the softer Dublin team of the noughties that were just missing one or two things? I don't know. I think they're more perhaps of the Dublin 90s. I think last Saturday was a blip for Mayo. I wouldn't... they'll still go further in the Championship than Roscommon, I feel.
Yeah.
I feel they will.
Yeah.
They have the talent.
The question, we had Adam McGinley on the show last week, and I said to him, we're having a discussion here about the third favourites for the All-Ireland versus a team that are 125-1 for the All-Ireland. How is this even a conversation?
Yeah. Roscommon
are
a good team, and they proved that on Saturday. They're capable of taking out good teams. They're not at the level yet to continually take out good teams, I think. And that is the difference. The thing about Mayo is...
the point that I would make about it is that result says more about Mayo ultimately than it does about Roscommon, will be my main take, that they should have actually... That should not have been a conversation.
Yeah.
Sorry for interrupting.
No, you're absolutely right. And Kieran Whelan does discuss a few things. Like, for example, for me, Horan is now caught in a stick or twist situation, and possibly he's too late to twist. Now, we don't forget, we've people coming back from injury. We've Cillian O'Connor, Seamie O'Shea, Donny Vaughan. He mentions that here, and they'll increase the strength. But he was talking about the free taking, Kevin McLaughlin. He didn't look like he was firing on all cylinders, and that's fine. You can't be all the time. But Kieran Whelan's querying the decision making on the line, and that's a brave thing to do, because not everybody does, and not everybody does against Mayo in particular for this reason, because they're such a great story and they're wonderful to watch. I do think their supporters do put a lot of pressure on them, and maybe that played into this. I don't know. I'll probably get shot for saying that now as well. But I just think Mayo as a football team, the Championship needs them, and the longer they're in there, like last summer when they went out so early against Kildare. Was it a great new chapter in the tragedy that is Mayo football? Yes. It's a great story. I'm not sure, and Kieran Whelan saying the same thing, is the book going to be finished, written this September? Kieran seems to be of the opinion, no, it's not going to be. There's another chapter of heartache waiting for them, and he queries just basically that James Horan should get rid of some of the elder statesmen, but if you did, who would replace them? I'm not sure they're there yet.
And also some of those elder statesmen, one in particular was a Footballer of the Year not that long ago, so I don't know that you want to necessarily be sort of shunting them out the gap anytime soon.
Because you're not as brilliant as he used to be, and one of them is obviously Andy Moore, and he's probably more brilliant now than he was a few years ago. The other ones, just because they're not brilliant for 70 plus minutes on the field, does not make them not brilliant on the team. Righto, that's where we're going to leave the newspapers for the minute. Plenty of comments coming in, some questions for Johnny Sexton, who's coming your way a little bit later on, so keep those coming in too if you're watching us on YouTube, on Twitter or on Facebook, or indeed if you're on the stream at offtheball.com. Delighted to have you along with us this morning, just gone 8 o'clock on this Friday morning. Do keep your comments coming in, your questions for Johnny, we'll bring them to him a little bit later on. Somebody, Liverpool Forever, wondering what our predictions for the Champions League final is. For me it's Liverpool Forever asks Liverpool. For me it's Liverpool, not that anybody cares what I think. When Tottenham Forever tweets in later on, I might have a different response to that, but that's it for the minute. We've Eamonn Fitzmaurice on the way as well. He's going to talk Kerry, that's coming your way very shortly indeed, and we're going to talk about that Champions League final in a little bit more detail with Martin Lipton a little later in the show as well. So that's where we're at, but before that, Gareth Thomas was among our panel members yesterday. We were at Facebook HQ for a discussion on, it was in relation to the launch of the Union Cup, which takes place on June the 8th and 9th at DCU. It's an LGBT plus friendly tournament, and you can check out all the details on it on unioncupdublin.ie. So Gareth Thomas was amongst that panel, David Goff was there as well, and Lindsay Peat, to the current Ireland Rugby International, former Basketball International, and an All-Ireland winner to boot as well. Here's a clip of Gareth Thomas. I think this clip is him talking about an attack that he was on the end of in Cardiff in November of last year. Gareth, you've spoken about your own experience 6 months ago in Cardiff, and I don't know how comfortable you are to talk about that, or otherwise feel free to shut it down and we'll move on by all accounts. But I did wonder if that an incident like that chips away at your enthusiasm to be the role model you are, or actually furthers your resolve.
It definitely didn't chip. If anything, it kind of ignited it more, because you know, I used to, and I still do, I'm like a very much advocate of not telling people how to live their life, but getting people to fight for rights, which is what I'm extremely passionate about. And when when you're constantly telling somebody to stand up for what you believe in, when you get confronted with something that's contradictory to what I was when I got hate crimed against, I had kind of two options, and the simple one was just turn and walk away. But then when I continued to tell people, if you just walk away, you're not even a statistic. The reality of working on numbers, of finding out hate crimes, of finding out what goes on in the streets, is probably so much more because people decide just to turn and walk away. And then when statistics are given and money's given for funding for certain things, they're like, well, hate crime is down by a certain percentage and there's this. So the reality is that I chose to confront a group of kids who, because I was walking through the streets with my husband, decided that I was a target to be abused.
Yeah, it was Gareth Thomas in that panel yesterday. You can check out the full conversation up on the Union Cup Dublin Facebook page. It was a fascinating chat, and that story particularly was amongst the highlights of the day, of which there were many, where Gareth Thomas talks about having been attacked by a bunch of kids, essentially 16, 17-year-olds in Cardiff as he walked along, as he said, with his husband. And he chose not to become a victim of that he actually engaged. He rang the police at the time and he said to them, listen, I'm not going to stand for this. I'm calling the police here. And they came in and they said, look, there's an option here for you to go and sit down with these kids and have a bit of restorative justice, which is the path that he chose, and he seems to think that it had a bit of an impact, and certainly different way about going about things. It doesn't always work in every instance. The audience obviously needs to be open to it, I suppose, is one thing. But you just hope that's a better way about going about it, and that hopefully has some sort of an impact.
It's funny, actually. It reminds me a little bit of, I don't know if you know of her, Sinead Burke. She's a little person, and she does a lot of kind of work and raising awareness about this, and she's also an amazing fashion journalist. But beyond that, she's also really eloquent. But she had an incident where basically she was being mocked for her size, and it made her feel quite uncomfortable and unsafe because they were physically she wrote about it jumping over her as she was walking on a street. And it was teenagers, yeah. But she kind of said, I've taken on this role of being kind of a warrior and a kind of, I suppose, a social media campaigner and a justice campaigner for people like me and other people who are different. But isn't it awful sometimes that the person who is different has to be the person who also has to stick up for themselves and their group of people, so to speak? And I just think that takes a really strong person, because isn't it bad enough that you've been physically or mentally assaulted, but then you have to go and try and educate people about why they were wrong to do that about you? I just think society has so much more to do. And I think we as ourselves, those of us who are less different, I mean, we're all different and unique in our own ways, but I think it's time for ourselves who are a little less different to stand up for those who are. Because, I mean, how often have we been at games and stuff and you hear terrible things being said, insults about... I'm a big believer, if somebody can't change something within 30 seconds, don't say it to them. So, you've got chocolate on your face, yeah, say it. You're a little person, do you know you're only 3 foot tall? Come on. Or, castigating somebody because they're gay. You can't change that. So I think it's up to ourselves we should be better at educating people who aren't thinking that, instead of making the Sinead Burkes and the Gareth Thomases of the world having to go out to do it. Life is hard enough for them.
Yeah, good point, well made. UnionCupDublin.ie if you want to get yourself along to check out the tournament. 45 teams. There's going to be a real family festival atmosphere down there as well. It's at DCU. It's on June the 8th and 9th, which is tomorrow and Sunday week. So get yourself along and check out all the details. UnionCupDublin.ie. As I said, that full panel, really interesting stuff. Lindsay Peat is one of the best able communicators, voices of reason, activists that this country has. Her sporting CV, by the way, as a sidebar, is also unbelievable.
It's immense.
But she's an incredible person and really well spoken and a valuable contributor in that conversation yesterday. And David Goff and obviously the GEA have taken their own path over the last week, very encouraging for the LGBT plus community as well, that they're going to march in Pride this year, so that's all very positive stuff. And you feel that, to your point, that with every passing year there's more steps taken in the right direction, and I guess sometimes those steps are a bit slower than people would like, but progress.
They're far too slow. When you use the GAA as an example, David Goff is the only openly gay person I know within the GAA, as in openly. I know of people who are gay who aren't open, and that's fine, that's their choice. But that tells you something, that something is wrong somewhere, that people... I'm not blaming the GAA for this, I'm blaming actually ourselves and society for this, that people still don't feel they can come out.
I hear you. UnionCupDublin.ie. Get yourself along there, get tickets for the tournament, and we heard Off the Ball are right behind it as well, so check out that full conversation up on the Union Cup Dublin Facebook page. We are going to talk Gaelic games in just a few moments' time. It's obviously a massive weekend. We've touched on the hurling already, and Máire Treasa is going to be in Waterford this weekend, putting the hard questions to everybody involved afterwards. But it's to football we turn. Eamonn Fitzmaurice, good morning to you. I think we've Eamonn there. Are you there, Eamonn?
I am. How are you doing?
The line to Kerry takes a little bit longer sometimes to drop in, but we have you now.
Just a small bit of a delay, yeah.
All is good, all is good. We had Kieran Donaghy on during the week when he was trying to convince us all that this was only a 4-point game. What are you thinking?
I look. Everyone will be saying that all the Kerry fellas are trying to be cute now and whatever, but I suppose history shows we've played Clare a good few times over the last couple of years, and when we play them in Ennis, it's generally a tight game and we have to dig deep to win, and when we play them in Killarney, historically we've been quite comfortable, so any time that we go to Ennis, it has been challenging. Even going back to the time when I was playing myself, we always had to kind of dig deep there. The last time we were up there a couple of years ago, we were after winning the league final, and we were a man down. Donncha Walsh was sent off, and we were a man down at half time, and I can't remember, we were certainly 3, maybe 4 points down at half time, facing into a bit of a breeze in the second half, and we played outstanding in the second half, but we needed to win the game. So I think it'll be a good test for the lads, particularly with the 4 new debutants as well, and it'll be great for them to get a championship game under their belt.
Yeah, is it a perfect game in some ways in that regard? Because, like we were just discussing earlier, that we'd previewed the Mayo Roscommon game last weekend, and I'd made the point that Mayo are third favourites for the All-Ireland, Roscommon 125-1, so there shouldn't really be a conversation there. But for, I suppose, a team like Kerry with those 4 debutants, obviously first year for this management team, maybe the ideal game in some ways.
Well, it is, and I think that the big thing is that it's a game that the lads, the management and the players will have been looking forward to getting a championship game under their belt now, and once you get through it and once you get the result, it gives you great context for training afterwards, and it really informs you where you're at, both as a player and in terms of the team where you're at, and it just it gives something to focus on facing into the next game, whereas coming into the first championship game, there is a bit of a vacuum. You're not quite sure where you're at physically, where you're at football-wise. Obviously, you've been playing a good bit of football and training and probably the odd challenge game, but there's nothing like a good game, and I think everyone, from the management to the players to the supporters, are all looking forward to getting on the road now.
Éimonn, Máire Treasa seo cechuid for maidin.
Hi Máire, Constanta.
Come on, tá tú teachtanis sus up to the end of the school year, so you have time now to focus on football.
Yeah.
Are you excited now to watch Kerry, or are you just a little bit too close? Is it a bit too close to the bone yet now to be watching them, or are you able to be a fan yet, I suppose, is what I'm asking?
I don't know. I'll know maybe after Saturday evening. So far, I've been quite busy at work. I've been busy at home, so I haven't had really much time to think about it. But definitely from now on, when I'll have a bit of time over the summer, I suppose I'll have a better feel for it. But no, I'm definitely going to be ready to be a supporter. How vocal or otherwise I'll be another thing. I'll be probably just one of those quiet supporters sitting there watching us and trying to see what's going on in the games or whatever. But I'm looking forward to the game now tomorrow evening, looking forward to going to us and to seeing where the lads are at, and with my supporters hat on.
Would you be aware of that though? So if you're going there tomorrow, that if you sit there, your body language, everything you say and do is going to be dissected by everyone around you.
Yeah, I'll try and find some nice quiet corner if I can where I'll be able to observe away. Yeah, I suppose there is an element of that. I haven't really thought about that, to be honest, Máire Treasa, in terms of I'll just be myself, and after that then hopefully it'll be a very positive summer for Kerry, and there'll be plenty of positive body language and positive commentary and everything else.
As long as you don't start writing letters to Peter Keane.
No, there's no fear of that. There's no fear of that. I'd be only encouraging him, in fairness, Adrian.
He deflected lovely during the week. I don't know if you saw it. He was asked about the inevitable question, obviously, about Dublin, and he had a lovely sort of way of deflecting it, which I won't try and butcher now. But when he was asked about, Dublin and the prospect of Dublin down the track, Peter Canavan takes on the topic in the Indo today, and he's making the case that actually for this Kerry team, that now is the time, that it's a bunch of young players that are well used to winning, that Crokes players are back from the league, that actually there's a couple of little bits of bad luck maybe had gone Kerry's way in the league. They might have ended up as league champions, which would be a slightly different prospect. when it comes to talking about Kerry for 2019. Would you go with that?
Well, look, I mean, I think the way we feel about it and the way we felt about it last year is that if we're on top of our game in Kerry, that, you know, we're a match for anyone, and we will take beating on a day. Obviously, at the moment, Dublin are on a different level, and to beat Dublin, if it comes down to that, if you're getting to play a big game against Dublin for Kerry this summer, that means that you're down to the last four, possibly even a final. That's where you want to be. So, you know, if we're talking about Kerry and Dublin from a Kerry perspective, that's progress. I think, you know, as I said, with everyone fully fit, I think that we need a fully fit squad. We need everyone, and we need everyone going well. But on top of our game, certainly Kerry, it'll take a very good team to beat Kerry. And, you know, I think discussing Dublin or discussing that far down the line, it's probably a bit early for us. I think the focus for everyone within the group certainly will be getting a big performance on Saturday evening in Ennis, getting that game under the belt. It'll be Peter Keane's first championship game done, and hopefully be looking forward to Munster final then, and after that, you know, the Super 8s opens things up. But look, of course, you know, anytime you start out a championship with Kerry, you're going to be hopeful. You know that you need to get a lot right. But if Kerry can get everything or a lot right, yeah, it'll take a good team to beat them.
Is it a very different animal, I suppose, maybe to use that word, going from the league into the championship in terms of Peter Keane's outlook now?
It is. It's totally different. I think the league, you know, every year the league is, you set out to win it again, of course, but the big thing is to stay in Division 1, give a good few players game time, try and see where you're at, develop your playing style and so on. You know, actually winning the league is always a kind of a bonus. So, you know, I think that when it comes to championship, then that's how you're measured in Kerry, that's how you're measured as a player, that's how you're measured as a manager and a management team. So it's a completely different animal. It's a different animal for everyone, and I think that's why everyone is, you know, really looking forward to this year with the changes that have been there in terms of management, and where, you know, all of the young players are starting to come through. There was, I think I'm not sure how many, maybe 6 or 7 lads made debuts during the championship last year. So there's been a good turnover of players over the last couple of years. So that's exciting from a Kerry perspective. And you know, as I said, you get measured by championship and how you perform in championship. So that'll be interesting.
It's the thing about Kerry, it being Kerry, there's always expectations. Like Don Mayo and Nadine, I was in Kenmare last Friday night and I was in a guest house, and the woman wasn't even from Kerry, and she was telling me all about Kerry football and how this year is going to be the year. And there is an element of trying to manage expectations, and we saw last summer the Super 8s didn't go your way. That terrible game against Galway, it was just an awful game to watch. I mean, it was a terrible result for Kerry. Then you kind of, you know, you pulled it out of the fire, you could argue, with that draw against Monaghan, which was a great game to be at. So you could see the Kerry roller coaster was roller coasting in a way last summer that perhaps the Kerry fans wouldn't be used to and possibly didn't particularly enjoy. So the expectations are going to be really high now this summer, because we've seen all the signs again of this Kerry team is coming right.
Yeah, and I think the thing, while our Super 8 experience last summer wasn't as positive as we would have liked, I think it was still a fantastic thing to be involved in. Obviously, that day against Galway, the first game out, it knocked us, it knocked us off kilter. We had been going very well. We were very happy as a group where we were at. And that performance kind of came out of nowhere. There was no indications in training beforehand or in the Munster Championship that kind of, a sub-performance was coming, and we didn't deal with it well on the day, and we lost the game in a kind of, it knocked us out of kilter, as I said. But the following weekend, then getting a chance straight away. And other years, in 2010 we had lost to Down in All-Ireland quarter-final. In 2012 we'd lost to Donegal in the quarter-final, and the way we felt was that you had a chance to kind of recover the following weekend. It was fantastic that we weren't out of championship, so we went up, and in effect we were playing an Ulster Championship game in Clonus against Monaghan, and like you said, it was a great game. We salvaged it at the end. could have possibly won it at the very end, and we still had it all to play for against Kildare the last weekend in Killarney, but unfortunately the results didn't go our way elsewhere. So it was a great adventure, and it was a kind of a mad ride to be inside in the middle of all of that, and I think that has to be the aim for every team, to get to that Super 8 stage. And again this year, I know there's been a lot of commentary around structures and everything else over the last while, but I think when you get to that Super 8 stage with the football, that there will be a lot of very competitive games, a lot of results that you mightn't predict beforehand, and that can only be good for the championship as well.
The team obviously named last night, and I know a lot of the focus this morning is on the 4 debutants, which to a degree might suit Peter Keane, but looking at that full forward line, it's an absolute killer full forward line. Clifford, Gainey and Anne O'Donoghue, who obviously has shown unbelievable patches of form. I'm sure Kerry fans would like to see a more consistent James O'Donoghue to get him back to his peak.
Absolutely, I think that's what we'd all like to see, is James kind of back at his 2013, 2014 level, where he was almost unmarkable. But to be fair to him, he's been very unlucky with injuries. He's very dedicated. He's worked ferociously hard off the pitch over the last couple of seasons, so that his body is a bit more robust. But he's just been unlucky with injuries, and with that, then it's been hard to have that consistency and that high level of form maybe that everyone expects of him. So, once James stays injury free and he keeps getting games under his belt, he'll be the player that we all know he can be. Like you said, that's very exciting. Inside line, and outside then, Sean O'Shea, Stephen O'Brien are both playing the football of their lives as well. So in general, we are potent up front. We know that it's a matter of getting the rest of the jigsaw right if we can, and if we can get enough of ball into those forwards, they can hurt any team, that's for sure. 2
quick ones just to wrap up. Firstly, what's the margin of difference for you in this one?
The margin of difference.
Can I word it that way?
Let me see. Kieran went for 4. Was it? Well,
I think the spread is in around 11 points. I think
we'd be happy with 4. And I'm not just saying with my farmer manager's hat on. I think once you win by a point, you're happy and you're on to the next game, and that's it. But let's see. I'll Kerry by 6, hopefully.
Yeah, I always take a Kerry 6 for around sort of 9 or 10 or thereabouts. The other point, just on Mayo last weekend, finally, what was your thoughts on that? It's we were just discussing how the result was maybe more of a reflection of where Mayo are at, other than Roscommon, but is this a serious dent now in their All-Ireland ambitions?
I don't think so. I think they wouldn't have seen it coming. I think the thing with Mayo sometimes is that they're at their most dangerous actually when they're backed into a corner and they have to fight a bit. I think sometimes when there's expectancy and there can be almost an overconfidence about them, you can catch them. So look, I think with the 2, let's say, shocks in inverted commas over the last couple of weeks, you were looking at Cavan beating Monaghan and Roscommon beating Mayo, but both Cavan and Roscommon played Division 1 football this year. They would have learned a lot, and they lost, both teams would have lost tight games, and they would have definitely developed a lot playing at that level. So, of course, while it was a shock, and I don't think it would have been part of James Horan's plans, Mayo are missing a few players. They'll regather themselves. I think they have a good break. I think they have 3 or 4 weeks until the next game, so they'll be ready to go. So I wouldn't be writing them off just yet, to be honest about it.
Okay, brilliant, Eamonn. Thanks a million for taking the call.
Okay, no problem. See you, lads.
Eamonn Fitzmaurice there on the line ahead of Kerry Clare this weekend. And not writing May off. Interesting stuff. So keep your comments coming in. We've Johnny Sexton on the way. He's live in studio in a few minutes' time. We're going to get his thoughts on the season just gone and a few more bits and pieces besides a few questions in. And if you have a question you want to put to Johnny, just use the hashtag OTB AM or drop your comment in on the YouTube or Facebook feed or on Twitter. And we'd be happy to bring you those thoughts. We're going to talk the Champions League final in a few moments' time. Martin Lipton is going to join us on the line to look ahead to Liverpool against Spurs. But before all of that, obviously a massive fight weekend as well in New York, and not looking too far beyond this weekend's bout against Delphine Pursoon in Madison Square Garden. Katie Taylor, who joined us during the week, told us that she remains hopeful that a fight with Amanda Serrano will materialise sooner rather than later. And we also have Andy Lee's take on the fight coming a little bit later on.
And I know it's not really your style to be overlooking the task at hand, but there's always been talk about that Amanda Serrano fight, and it was my understanding that it was part of her DAZN contract that a fight with you was sort of stipulated for the back end of that contract, and yet there's some cold feet from her part, or so it seems. Do you take much notice of that? Is that still a fight you're interested in?
Yeah, that's definitely the fight I'm interested in. I honestly feel that they'll find Pizzion as a harder fight than Amanda Serrano, and I do have to get over this fight. I do feel like this is going to be the toughest fight of my career to date, but once I get over that fight, the Amanda Serrano fight is definitely on the cards, and that's the fight that makes sense next, really. It would be such a shame if that fight didn't happen, or if she's pulled out of the fire, or whatever's going on her end. But that fight has to happen. It's the fight that everyone wants, and it's the fight that everyone's been talking about after on Pro as well. It's probably the biggest fight in women's boxing right now. So that fight really does have to happen. It's important for the sport that fight happens.
Yeah, that's Katie Taylor ahead of the big fight this weekend. Been plenty of coverage of it. Yeah.
Lots.
Around the Irish media. I've seen...
Despite some people saying otherwise.
There'll always be cranks. Right, we're going to look ahead to the Champions League final for tomorrow night. It's Liverpool against Tottenham, obviously. It's in Madrid. I'm delighted to say Martin Lipton, football writer with The Sun, joins us on the line. Morning to you, Martin.
Good morning.
Most debates around this topic end with Liverpool winning it. How are you seeing it?
Well, they're the better team, aren't they? The Premier League table tells you that. The 2 games this season, to a degree, tell you that. And I think man for man, if you do a composite team, you probably have the majority of Liverpool players in that team.
Doesn't mean they'll win.
No, because it's a football match and anything's possible. But, you know, if one takes a cold, analytical look at the 2 teams, taking emotion and, you know, personal interest out of it, I think it'd be difficult to make a case for Tottenham to be the favourite.
Harry Kane obviously been talking a good game this week. He's saying that he's fit and ready to go. Not always the wisest thing to trust the players' take on these things. Does he start? Will he start?
I don't even know why people ask the question. He is going to start. It's as simple as that. He's the best player in the team. Even
at 70% Harry Kane, the rationale is worth putting in.
I'd have a 70% Harry Kane, I have above 150% Fernando Llorente. It isn't a call for that he has to make. It's a given. Every time Harry Kane is fit, he plays, and he's fit. He could have played. If it had been 3 weeks ago, it would have been a difficult decision, but it's now. And one thing you have to point out, I think, is that nobody is match sharp because nobody's played for 3 weeks.
That's a good point.
Yeah, but I don't know. I suppose I'd be thinking even Harry Kane, brilliant and all as he is, 70% fit, we'll say that's what he is, or 80% fit. That might mean that he might have to be subbed earlier than you might want.
He's your best player. He's your best player. You start him. If he has to go off after 70 minutes, then que sera, sera. You play your best players.
If you get 70 out of him, what if you only get 10 out of him?
Well, then you only get 10 out of him. But I don't think it's an issue. If he doesn't play, Liverpool start the game 1-0 up. Mentally. If he plays, Liverpool are concerned. Because he's a danger. He's a threat. He occupies defenders. He can score a goal from nothing. Even when he's not. At the end of last season, he came back. He wasn't fit. He still scored 6 goals in 7 matches. Because he's a goal scorer.
Yeah. He can be a bit slow at the start of the seasons and stuff like that as well. So look at it. I mean, kind of conscious as well that it's a Champions League final and maybe those things kind of go out the window. And on that note, like, you again look at the sort of regulation season in the Premier League as some sort of a guide when we're reaching around to see how this one goes. And obviously a couple of 2-1 wins for Liverpool, the most recent of which was the major dollop of luck that anybody who's not Liverpool will be not that slow to point out to you, the Alderweireld OG at the end of that game. Are those games, is that game any indicator about what happens this weekend, Martin, or is it just such a one-off occasion that those things really don't matter?
Well, if you look at the 2 games, they're very different. Are they an indicator? I'm not sure, because this is a single match. But in those 2 games, the first one, 2-1 Liverpool at Wembley, it was really 5-1. Liverpool were infinitely better. But it should have been 2-2 because Spurs should have had a penalty in the 92nd minute, which would have been given with our friend VAR. The game at Anfield, for half an hour, Liverpool were much better. for most of the remaining hour, Tottenham were considerably better, and that was a 1-1 game, which was 2-1 by Liverpool by a dodgy own goal on the last kick. But it's not about that. It's about which team settles, which team has the chance to impose themselves on this game, who take their chances, who doesn't make the critical mistakes. It always comes down to, as people told me in football all the time, small margins.
What they've obviously, Tottenham famously spent next to nothing over the last few seasons. Is there any
That's not true. They didn't spend next to nothing.
Actually nothing, yeah.
Yeah, they spent nothing.
It's a reasonable point. I mean, I have thought that over the last few years, the big transfer success for them has been hanging on to most of their bigger players and spending that money, I guess, in that way. But is there any sense that post this Champions League final, one way or the other, I mean, does winning it, for example, change their outlook in that regard? I know you'll be following these things closely in terms of any potential targets for Tottenham.
The summer of change, whatever happened. Pochettino, for whatever reason, there's lots of them, has spent the season assessing his team, and as he did in his first season, which he spent assessing the team, has decided that radical change is required. I think there'll be 6 or 7 in and 6 or 7 out. I think there'll be significant changes, particularly at right back and to a degree at left back. I think they're going to have to reinforce in central midfield. They need an extra striker. If they lose the likes of, I think they will, Eriksen and Alderweireld, that money goes into the kitty. I think there'll be a net spend of around 90 million by Tottenham this summer.
Wow. Any idea, just remove as to who they're going to get?
Well, they've definitely looked at the boy Lo Celso at Betis. We know that. I think there's others as well. They might have a tickle at Maddison if they lose Eriksen. I think that's a possibility. And Ndombele at Lyon is very much a target. They have looked at Aarons at Norwich, the right back, although I'm told that Norwich are desperate to keep him for their season in the Premier League. Sexton at Fulham, I think, is pretty likely to be a Spurs player next season. There's still an interest in Zaha. That's just a few.
Does that make them title? They land 3 or 4 of those, 5 of those targets. Does that make them Premier League title contenders?
I think 25 points is a big gap to make up. It would need City and Liverpool to significantly underperform. I do think that now in the new stadium, assuming as I do that Pochettino stays and with significant spending and a summer to recover, which they didn't have last season because the World Cup took its toll on Tottenham more than anybody else, and that's witnessed by the number of muscle injuries they sustained over the season, that they could be in a better position in terms of being able to go the distance than last year. Whether that's enough to really challenge is another matter.
And in terms of tomorrow night, what are you thinking? Are you with everybody else?
Yeah, 3-0.
Ah, right. That's a happy note to leave it on. Martin, thanks a million for taking the call.
Cheers then.
Thanks.
Bye-bye.
Martin Lipton, football writer with the Sun there. Yeah, I mean,
I'd be delighted if it was 3-0.
Yeah, you're a Liverpool fan?
I'm a Jurgen fan.
Ah, right, yeah, well, that's fair enough. I can sympathise with that. He's an interesting guy. As somebody who obviously studies in that regard, I'm sure he's probably more fascinating than most.
Oh, he's a dream. And the reason I love him, I think, is because he's honest. He doesn't do any of this stuff about saying we only worry about ourselves, none of this. He's open and honest, and he'll come in and he'll say we're going to try and win, we might not, but we're going to enjoy ourselves. And I tell them, you know, he's just, there's no messing with him. And I like that. And he understands that it's just football, but he understands that it's important to people, and that's the balance to have. And he understands the limitations and the possibilities of his team. Yeah. And he gave them belief.
We're going to talk to John Duggan in a little while. Let's nobody mention that we're saying it's going to be 3-0 to Liverpool. Just nobody mention that when John comes in. Johnny Sexton is on the way in just a couple of moments' time. He's live in studio, so any questions you have for him or thoughts, please do get those into us in the next few minutes. We'll bring those to Johnny before we're done. But before all of that, we've been discussing a massive fight, obviously, tomorrow night. Katie Taylor has a chance to become the unified world champion. Here are the thoughts of Andy Lee and Phil Egan on that clash. It's from Off the Brawl, our boxing podcast.
Signature weekend, Andy, on the boxing calendar, isn't it?
Yeah, it is huge, and huge for Irish boxing. We're the first undisputed Irish champion of the world, and I believe she's going to do it. I can't see any way Persian beats her. Do you?
I was watching.
Unless Kerry has a completely bad night.
Yeah, but she doesn't have
dragged into a fight. But
but even if she did get dragged into a fight, she'd still win.
She will.
Like, it'd be more entertaining.
And definitely could happen
for a neutral.
Definitely could happen. Like, I'm sure Katie's tactic is to box and stay on the outside and just get the win, because I've spoken to Brian Pease and he said that's that's the message, you know. Just get the win and don't worry about trade and just box. But Katie, you know, we've seen it a million times. She will trade, won't she?
Yeah.
She will dig in and have a go if she's challenged. So I'm excited to see how she does it. I don't think, as I said earlier, I think she will win the fight. It's just a matter about how she goes about it. Will she? In one ways, I'll be happy to see a boxer disciplined like the 10 rounds and see a boxer disciplined fight. But then again, if she gets involved and has a tear up, that's also entertaining, you know, from the neutral kind of standpoint. And some part of me feels that she will do that because she'll want to entertain and prove a point and show that she is like the most dominant boxer, female boxer in the world. But Pousson's is awkward, and that's her biggest strength. That's what she has to kind of rely on. And I don't know how you could kind of compare it to, probably a disservice to Carl Froch, but a female version of Carl Froch, and that she's come forward, she's straight punching, and she's tough, and she'll keep going. She has a good engine, and she's got some power, especially to the body. So, one enough for Katie to the rest of it. I'm sure she won't, but go in there, I think, box early, and then see how she can do going down the line. But
yeah, long arms as well. But I just think Katie would be too quick for her. She'd be able to get in and out and land the combinations. And Pursuing, she's a decent 1-2. She doesn't, she throws that quite well. But I just think that by the time she tries to get that off, Katie could have got in and out. And you could kind of see the first few rounds, Katie wins them quite comfortably, outboxes her, and maybe realises through the fight, do you know what, I'm better than Pursuing, and then maybe we might see a few exchanges later in the fight. Because if there are exchanges later in the fight, if you're Katie Taylor and you're thinking, if I have one bad round, or where, you know, you take a few risks, they're 2-minute rounds, you can get yourself out of harm's way quick enough, so I think she'll win comfortably on the scorecards.
Yeah, you can check out that full chat, the preview of the Katie Taylor fight, up on offtheball.com. Andy Lee and Phil Egan in conversation there, and that interview with Katie Taylor as well. Johnny Sexton, good morning to you.
Morning.
How's it going?
Yeah, good, thanks.
Are you fighting fresh and nice calm week?
No, it was a good week. Obviously, when you win a final, we had a good celebration Sunday, and then we actually had our 10-year reunion of the 2009 team on Tuesday night, dinner, and then a day together on Wednesday, which was good crack.
Nice and quiet, I'm sure. I wanted to ask you, we've just been discussing the Champions League there, and so I wanted to get your thoughts on that. I actually Googled yesterday Johnny Sexton, Liverpool, because I thought, he's a Liverpool fan. But it turns out it was all sort of people added 2 and 2 and came up with 10.
You're just trying to wind me up now.
It was the half-time reference.
You didn't Google that yesterday.
No, I did, but it told me that you weren't. Because,
we still have this.
People had heard the half-time story, so they were like, that's obvious then.
Yeah, no, there's still arguments going on about this. So I denied saying Liverpool in the changing room,
right.
But I obviously said in my post-match interview, that came to mind then. But I thought in the dressing room, I said, look, you've seen in other finals in years gone by. Right. But apparently I didn't.
Brian O'Driscoll swears that you said Liverpool.
Okay, well, I'm not going to argue with Brian, despite what he says. Better arguments, but no, it was, I'm a Man United fan. Still a Man United fan.
Right.
Even now.
Even now. So proud to be as well. No, it's obviously a tough season, but I think I can't wait for the final tomorrow night. I think I'm up for Spurs. I think it'll be tougher for Liverpool than it would have been if it was Ajax, but we'll see.
Nobody really giving Spurs much of a shake. Like, we were just talking to Martin Lipton, who covers a lot of Spurs particularly, and he's like, look, it's 3-0 was what he was saying at the end. So I mean, yeah.
I don't know, sometimes I think when you're involved in sport and you've had the run that they've been on, like getting out of the group after losing, I think, their first 3 games, and then the way they finished against Man City, the way they finished against Ajax, you kind of, as a player, sometimes you just think, this is going to be our year, you know. And I've been in teams before like that, and I'd say those Spurs players are probably a little bit like that. I'd say they feel like they can't lose it.
Well, it's such a weird dynamic given the heroics that both of them had in the semi-finals. Like, if any one of those things happens in any given year to one team, at that point you're assuming, well, our name is on the title here because it's written.
I didn't think of the Liverpool side of things. I was just thinking from a Tottenham point of view.
Try not to think about too much about Liverpool.
Do you know the big discussion about Tottenham is the whole Harry Kane thing, and will he play, will he not play, is he fit, is he 100% fit, is he 90% fit? Obviously you'd have a different perspective on this. So like, if you're a manager and you've had Harry Kane, he's 70% fit, 80% fit, 90% fit, when do you decide I'm taking a chance on him?
He looked 100% fit when he was running on the pitch after the Ajax game.
He did.
I think with footballers it can be maybe slightly different to rugby players, because with rugby there's a contact element that you just can't replicate until you get to a game. No matter how hard you try in training, like the impact of body on body in a match is just so different. So that's where rugby players can struggle to get match fit. I think with footballers it can be a bit easier. Well, maybe not, but obviously they need that sharpness that they talk about. But I'm sure he would have over the last couple of weeks if he's been back full. If you're back full training for a few weeks, I think he'll be ready to go. If he's just scraping back in on a Wednesday to get back for Saturday, I think that's slightly different. That's where you'd have some worries.
And if he was scraping back in of a Wednesday, would you chance him?
I don't know. I think Pochettino probably have a better idea than me. I'll leave that to him.
It is a point, though, isn't it, with players? The point that I made flippantly to Martin Lipton was you can't trust a player to tell you that he's fit, because if it's particularly a game of that magnitude, I know there's obviously a lot of science now that goes into these things, and it's not just, well, we take him on his word, but at the same time, from a player's point of view, I'm sure you're every opportunity you get to say, listen, I am good to go, put me in.
Yeah, and sometimes you can be your own worst enemy. Sometimes you can be, not fit at all, and you're just, some party just doesn't want the next guy to have a chance. Some party just wants to get out there and make sure you don't miss something. But then there's another party that thinks, I could probably do a job, And sometimes you can. Sometimes you can come back on a Wednesday and be out for ages, and you can bluff it a bit and you get away with it, and everyone thinks you had a great game. And then there's other times where you come back and you're ready and you've trained hard and you're ready to go, and things don't go well. And it's just, like I said, it is getting more scientific, but I don't think there's a exact science behind coming back.
Bluff around it a bit. I wonder, like, it's interesting to hear you say about that sort of wanting to make sure that the next guy coming in doesn't get that opportunity. Are you still in that space? Because there was obviously a lot made of the Ross Byrne selection in the semi-final, and people were reading a lot into it. And I know that Philippe Cantapome came out to try and sort of calm everybody down and say, listen, Johnny's still our guy, by the way. Was there still an element of that for you there, like that sort of, listen, I'm still here, whippersnapper?
No, look, Leo's got our seasons mapped out, like, from the start. Like, I knew the plan from Christmas time,
right.
what games I was going to play when I was fit, what games I wasn't going to play, and I knew that Ross got us to that position. Ross had played a lot more league games than I had. I think I played 4 or 5, as opposed to he probably played maybe 12, 13 games, and he got us there, and he deserved to play it. Now, I put my best argument in to try and make him change the plan and try and get back in there, and felt that after losing the final, and I hadn't played too much rugby since the Six Nations, I just felt that I would have loved to, but I could understand the way it went, and Ross did really well, and it's important for him. He's in the World Cup squad now, and I think that game will hopefully stand to him, and he can push his way in from there.
What do you sort of just rock up to Leo's desk, office, knock on the door? You appear at the door, he goes, I know why you're here. Like, what sort of dynamic? What happens?
No, it's like he knows I want to play when I'm fit, and that's all. It wasn't too long a conversation. I was like, "What? Are we still going with the plan?" And he said, "Yeah, I think it's right for us and right for the team." And so that's how it went. And I was ready to go, and ready, trained hard that week, and made sure I was ready if I was called upon, because it's actually worse sometimes when you're on the bench, because you've got to prepare. Like, I could be on after 5 minutes, so I got to be ready for the start of the game, but really you're thinking about all the scenarios sort of when you come on at 50, if you're winning, if you're losing, if you're if things are tight, and I was, just before I came on, things were like obviously tight, and then we got a score, so your plans can change in a minute. So things obviously changed just before I came on, and the game was a lot different than for me when I did come on.
With the Pro 14 obviously haven't wrapped up, and the way that it went, I presume you don't do too much analysis at this stage of what happened there, but I wondered about with the dust settled a little bit about Newcastle, if there's still elements of that kind of rankle with you a bit, or where are you at on that, or how do you sort of move past that? Is there any analysis of it? Is it just parked?
Oh, we did a load of analysis on it, yeah, because we wanted to learn from it for the Munster game and for the Glasgow final, and I think you saw some of it in the Glasgow final. Not all of it. It was a pretty poor day in Glasgow, conditions wise, and really, really difficult conditions to play in. So you didn't probably see some of the stuff that we had talked about or worked on, but we took a lot from that game, and I think that'll stand to us going forward for some of those guys. The guys that are 22, 23, I think they'll live with that game for the next 10 years. I want to learn from it for the next 2 years. But Saracens are a top quality team. They've won 3 of the last 4, and they're a hard team to stop, and they've got they've got the core of the England team, but then they take some of the best players from the other countries, guys like Liam Williams, Will Skelton, like he's in the form of his life, and you see he's rumoured to be going back to Australia now, and you add in Vincent Koch, the tight head, so like you just add in those players, and it's quite a formidable team to play against, and we just felt that if we had taken our chances, and if a couple of decisions had gone our way that didn't go our way, things could have been a little bit different, but they weren't, and they beat us.
Yeah, they're not bad.
Convincingly in the end.
Not bad.
Yeah.
They're a grand side.
Are you?
Careful, yeah.
Yeah, they are. Yeah, it's hard to see them going anywhere. It was like we were talking about the Jurgen Klopp. He's done an interview with Jamie Carragher, and I think the Telegraph this morning, and he's talking a lot about City. Like it almost feels to me like he's kind of saying, well, like on the face of it, they are a better team than us. He's obviously not sort of exceeding that they're going to win, that City are going to win the Premier League over the next number of years, but he's clearly saying, well, on any day if it's 50-50 they win. There's an element of that between yourselves and Saracens. I mean, I know there will be other teams that will have their hand up as well, but there is an element of that it looks like at the minute, and I mean, maybe you say this after every Heineken Cup season, but it does appear that the two of you are kind of thereabouts and are going to be for a little while. Yeah,
I'm sure we'll have some good battles, coming up with them. I think that, like, you can. We spoke about small margins, like we beat them last year, and we had a few injuries, but the impact that a player like Vunipola can have, or Will Skelton being back in really good form, and they just a couple of things just went their way this year. We didn't have a couple of guys that maybe would have made a bit of a difference for us in the final, but like I said, they totally deserve to be champions. They beat us in that second half fairly convincingly, but we'd love to go back and, like I said, play the last few minutes of the first half and the start of that second half again, because there's some chances there that if we'd taken, we would have just put a little bit more pressure on them, and things could have been different then. That's not to say that they still wouldn't, we could have scored first and the second half, having not conceded at the end and been 17-3 up and still lost it, so they're that good. So it's just ifs and buts, but like we're going to take a lot from it and learn from it, and some of those learnings are tough to take, because they were things that we probably spoke about before the game.
At the stage of the career that you're at, are you doing much individual self-analysis on that, or is it just a team environment thing?
Yeah, it's both. Like, there was big learnings from my point of view as well. Like, obviously, if I had to go back and play the game, I try and do things slightly differently. But there was a lot of times in the first half, especially where when we had the ball, I was in contact, like in a ruck, cleaning out or being tackled, and that doesn't often happen too much, and I was caught then sort of after being last up out of the ruck, just holding out the weight that should have maybe just got in there and tried to broke the shape that we had, and trying to get in and get on the ball a bit more. So there's learnings there for me, maybe try not to be in the contacts in the first place, but sometimes that can just work out that way. It's more how to react after that and just get myself back into my position, as opposed to filling out, in other people's positions, and trying to keep that width that we talk about so much.
Do you review games just looking at yourself?
No, look, we review games together. I tend to not try and look at it by myself, because again, you look at it just through your own, and there's times where you have to do that as well. But I tend to just do the review with the player or with the team, and then if there's bits in that review where I think, I need to look at that again, I'll look at it like through myself, and but I try not to overanalyze things anymore. I used to come home from a game and spend hours, sitting watching the game and mulling over every mistake and decision I took, and there's moments that you got to take and learn from, but there's others that, you know, mistakes that look like your mistake that you can't do anything about, that they're actually not your
Somebody
mistake.
else, but that guy, it wasn't
if he had just caught the ball, or if he had just, you know, expected that it was for him and not for someone else, those type of things, you know, you can't do anything about them, so there's no point in analysing them to the nth degree. It's just, you know, things that happen in a game.
Given your position and seniority in the team as well, if you're looking at that analysis, what's your opportunity to be able to analyse others in the team, I suppose? I mean, because that might, sometimes it can be welcomed, a little quiet word with somebody to say, listen, maybe you should have been in a slightly different position here, and sometimes it might not be. But given your seniority in the team, is that something you can do, or have the avenues to do, or have the interest to do?
I'd never obviously step on the coach's toes. I'd say anything I would say, I would stay in the team environment, because, you know, when the coaches are there, so if they disagree with what I think, that they can say it. And I was talking to Jamie Easop recently. He's in Google now, and he's saying how scary, how open it is in meetings in rugby environments, like how honest and thing. He said if you were anywhere as honest in his line of work now, it's just, you'd be fired. And that is a bit like that in rugby, but they're very open, frank, you know, reviews, and you know, at times you can dread them, you know, when you've had a bad game, when, you know, when we've lost especially, and you go in and you know it's going to be tough, and you know it's going to be some harsh words.
Is that all coach, those harsh words, all coach led?
It's a mix, yeah. Often it's led by coaches, but then, you know, players have the opportunity or forum to step up and say things if they want to.
Who are the best players in a Leinster Irish context at doing that feedback?
Like the senior players, really, but there's some young lads in Leinster now that have some big experiences under their belt. They've won Grand Slams, they've won Hurling Cups, so they're, you know, they have a point of view as well, and we're encouraged, especially by Stuart, to find your voice and to say something if it matters, but you got to be ready that if someone might disagree with you, and then it becomes a bit of an argument.
I was just going to ask, how do you ensure that it stays, for the want of a better place, safe, that you don't go out feeling worse than you came in, or especially a young player might be going home mulling about this for the next 2 weeks and terrified to touch a ball?
Well, that's professional sport. Like, I think you got to learn that, you know, after these things, you got to take accountability and responsibility, and I don't think, you know, we'd be worried too much about feeling. Obviously, it's all constructive. It's nothing. I was
just going to say, there must be somebody ensuring, you know, every once in a while that it is constructive all the time. It's not just you.
But sometimes it is you. Sometimes if someone has a bad game, and I've been there before, where it is you, and it is all your fault, and you can't get away from that. Yeah, it's tough. Yeah,
what do you do?
It's tough. It's you got to wait till the next game really to put it right, and that's why.
Could be a long time.
Yeah, it is if you get dropped. Yeah, and again, I've been there before, but it's the hardest part about sport, isn't it? Like form, like I would say injuries is the hardest part, but then form, you know, when things aren't going your way, and sometimes you just can't seem to put things right, and that can go on for a while. Sometimes you can have a one-off game, and then you just, you know, get your form back straight away. But for young guys coming through, I think knowing that, I suppose that's where senior players come in. You can say to the young guy, look, we've all had games like that. We've all, you know, had moments like that where you want to go and take them back, but you'll learn from it and you'll be better for it. And I think that's the most important thing.
Who was the player who did that for you when you were younger?
I had a few. I think my early days in Leinster, you know, Felipe would have been a big influence. You know, I think there was times where even guys like Shane Jennings, Leo Cullen would have had a big influence on me when things weren't going well. So I'd played in the 2008 season, played 10 a lot, and we won the league. With Felipe 12, Gordon Darcy had a long-term injury, and we won the league. But the following season, Felipe's back, Gordon's back, and I'm back playing in the AIL. And you know, you feel pretty much alone, and you know the coaches probably don't have a lot of time for you. And I remember those guys ringing me saying, look, we recognise, you know, what you did last year, and we, you know, just stay patient. And at the time, I think I was out of contract, and I was half thinking, you know, do I need to go and go to another club? And those guys, you know, were brilliant to me, and made sure that I sort of kept, you know, my focus, you know, in the right place. And thankfully, at the end of that season, things sort of turned for me again.
What were you? What was your thought process at that point? Was it a Joey Carberry style? I might have to head over there, or what was it? How serious was it?
In Munster.
Yeah.
Over there.
Would they have had me?
That's all I could say.
We're Roger.
Well, that's true. What were you thinking?
No, it was just that was the conversation that I was having with myself. Is there a future here for me in Leinster? I won the league last year, and now I'm back playing with Mary's in the AIL, and I was playing for Mary's in the AIL and playing for Ireland A, which was I was third choice Ireland out half, and I was playing for Mary's.
Most people looking in would have said, well, so he just needs to ride this out a bit. But when you're in the centre of it, you're like, Jesus, this isn't happening quick enough.
Exactly. But when you're at that age, you're convinced in your own head that you should be playing. You've got this confidence, this. You just back yourself to be playing. Obviously, looking back, Felipe was world class and one of the best players in his position in the world at the time. Issa was covering 10 at that time, and obviously he's proved how unbelievable a player he was. So looking back, I probably wouldn't have picked myself if I was the coach. Now looking back, but at the time, I was just impatient, and same as a lot of young players are now.
The other thing with you, is that you're one of the, if not the most scrutinised sports people in this country, right? So
by you?
By me, yeah. Well, I would be a contributing factor, but so it's not just the coaches or the teammates or you that are sort of analysing what goes on. It's every jackass in the street obviously has an opinion about you. What's that like on a personal level? In terms of, it's a pretty high profile thing. Like you mentioned the Google example. So somebody goes to Google, they have a crap day at work, they go home. The boss maybe has a quiet word with them, or nobody notices. Nobody really pays too much heed. Whereas what you're doing, everybody has an opinion about it. What's that been that centre of public scrutiny? What's that like?
Yeah, it has its highs and its lows. Obviously, when things are going great and everything's great, it's brilliant.
Do you enjoy that when it's good? The sort of.
I probably enjoyed it too much last year when it was good, and I forgot what it was like to be on the other end of it, and then sort of in around Christmas time last year, I found the other end of it pretty quickly after that Munster game, and it was a good learning for me, and good to see that the things could swing on such a small thing like that. And like I said, I haven't picked up or looked at anything since then. I haven't picked up a paper.
Really?
Yeah, and I probably fell into that trap, but for about 8-9 years of my career, I didn't look at anything. I met Enda McNulty when I was coming through in Leinster. He played a big part in us sort of getting over that last hurdle in Europe with him, and at the time he just said, boys, nothing, don't even go there. And I was religious with it. I never looked at things and went searching or anything like that.
You would read a newspaper just when it comes to sport. I ain't gone that far. How would you? What was your approach to it? Just
I love reading about sport. That's the thing. So I would have always, like I said, even through though I was not reading about myself or reading about rugby, I would have loved to pick up and read about any sport that was going on, and I did that, and I try to just stay away from the other stuff. And the reason I say it, I know you hear players say I don't give a crap what they say. I do care what people think and say, so that's why I stay away from it, because it bothers me so much, and it rattles me and gets me, sometimes gets me fired up, sometimes gets me down. How can you think that? That's not how it happened. Or so last year I probably fell into the trap a little bit, and when you're winning Heineken Cups, Grand Slams, and you can't put a foot wrong, you kind of fall into that. I'll see what this guy's saying, or
what rating did I get there?
Yeah. So whereas now it's brilliant for me. I just got away from it again, and you find yourself in a much better place, much happier place after because I know how things are in my own head. I don't need to see the endless opinions that are out there, and sometimes they're about your personality and stuff like that, when the only people that actually know you are your friends, your family, and your teammates. And you can judge a person by how he reacts in a moment when it's probably not fair to you.
There's a perception out there about you, obviously, that you're a serious guy, that there's not much crack going on, and blah blah blah, and that can just, exactly like you're saying, that can become a thing, and everybody takes hold, and then it becomes reality. But obviously, that's when you're at the centre of that, you're a different person. I could understand why that would, you go to the shop, right? And so people are like, I know what that's like, when you've had a great game, you go to the shop, maybe you just want to go in and pick up your loaf of bread and get the hell out of there. you've had a crap game, conversely the same thing. What's it like when you're trying to go about your daily life and you've got, as I said, every jackass or otherwise in the streets got an opinion about who you are and how you've done?
No, that's the other end of it. You know, often the public and the media, you know, the you type of guys, they don't match up. You know what I mean? So, you know, after I think it was after the, you know, Six Nations, there's times where, you know, through that, you know that the media is bad, you know that you're getting slated, but the public, you know, they're so supportive and they're unbelievable to you. You know, they're always, you know, thanks for that, thanks for the effort last weekend, it was brilliant, right. And, you know, things just didn't go our way, as opposed to, you know, you're crap and you didn't do anything right. So it's, often they don't match up. Sometimes they do, but often they don't, and that's why, you know, the Irish supporters and the Leinster supporters, they've been terrific over the years to us.
Your name actually was the first rugby player's name my nephew learned off when he was 5 years old. And he's an Irish speaker. And you used to hear him say real Connemara way, saying Jonathan Sexton. And every time he came on screen, he'd stand up and look, and he still does that. He's 9 years old now. So I'm assuming that happens a lot when you're out and about. You might see parents and kids pointing at you and going over for photos. And even if a bad day in the office, that must be nice.
Yeah, it is, and that's the flip side, isn't it? That you know, when you talk about the scrutiny and all that, there's the other side where, you know, often you get praised.
And if you locked yourself away, you'd miss that too. And I think that's a good thing to feel.
Yeah, but the argument is that you should stay, if you're going to stay away from it, you should stay away from both sides of the ball. And that's probably the mistake I made last year when things were going great. You can fall into the trap of listening to the good stuff, and then, you know, when you listen to it and you believe it, then you got to believe it and listen to it on the other side. So, you know, I won't let it happen again. I think it was good learning from, especially with this year coming up. I think with the scrutiny we're going to be under in the World Cup, like if you think the Six Nations was bad, and I think the level of scrutiny now at the World Cup will be a different level altogether. So it's a good lesson for us to learn.
It'd be a bit easier perhaps because the World Cup, I know it's a bigger event, but it's further away.
I don't know. We're always in our little bubble anyway, and we're in a hotel. We're in, you know, a team environment. I don't think we're ever too, you know, exposed. There's going to be, like, I know it's a long way away, Japan, in terms of distance, and it's going to be an expensive trip for people, but you can almost guarantee there will be the best supported side there, maybe apart from the Japanese, but we will be unbelievably supported, and it's something that shocks us every time we go there, and so we'll be in our bubble in a hotel over there, but I can guarantee there'll be Irish people everywhere, and that's something we're looking forward to, because when you go away to these tournaments, for some reason the atmosphere when these Irish fans come over, it's much more special than an Aviva, for example, bar maybe a New Zealand game last year or an Ireland-England game, but the atmosphere that they generate when they're away from home is just really special.
Yeah, I heard Tony Cascarino talking about it on the radio this morning about that. So it was in the context of the Champions League, and he was like, his reference point was the World Cups that he played at and how they just become this totally different thing that nobody's ever known before, and the expectation around them. What stage of your career are you at?
Halfway.
That's the optimist.
I don't know. I don't think about my own career like that. You know, I'm very driven by the next thing. So, you know, after Six Nations, you know, in many ways we've had 3 finals this year. You know, we've had the Wales game because, you know, if we'd won that, we were in with a chance of winning the Six Nations, despite all the ups and downs. We lost the Hurling Cup final, and then we won the Pro 14. But I'm always very driven by the next thing. Even after Newcastle losing the Saracens, it was right. Let's go. Let's prepare for Munster. Let's get this right. And you know, I'm very similar now. You know, all my focus now is switched to the World Cup, and it's great to be able to finally say that, you know, and say it without feeling guilty, but all our focus now is on the next 5 or 6 months, and that's how I think about it. That's how I've done it my whole career, really, and that's how I'm going to go about it. I'm going to try and enjoy it a bit more, knowing that, you know, there's probably not too many years left, but you know, I'm really excited about it now.
Would you make another World Cup? Is that too much?
I don't know. It all depends on body, really. You know, I think one thing that I know hasn't diminished is been my, you know, hunger and love of coming back for pre-season. You know, I'm already looking forward to going back training and getting ready for this World Cup. So I think the day that stops, You know, I will be the day I retire, but I don't think that'll probably ever happen. I think it'll be the body that'll quit before that, as you see with so many other guys. And will he make another World Cup? It's more likely that I won't than I will, but there's always outliers, and I spoke about this before with every country. You know, you saw George Gregan play a World Cup, I think, when he was 37, Brad Thorne, you know, Paulie played one when he was 35, 36, Rory Best is going to play one. So there's been guys that have, you know, done it, and it's something that probably will get more common now with how professional guys are getting, and so we'll see.
Talk to Rob Kearney about how to squeeze a couple of extra years out of your contract negotiations.
No, I'm delighted he's staying. It was a decision that affected quite a few people in terms of, like, I've played with Rob since I was, you know, 15, so I was desperate that he stayed around. I've never known a Leinster dressing room without having him and his sarcastic comments and slagging me off. So no, we're delighted that he's staying another year, and hopefully he can get a good run. You know, like I said, it's all down to your body at this age, and hopefully he can get a good run, and it mightn't be his last year.
A few questions coming in, and a couple of quick fire rapid round to hit you with at the end as well. That's where the really tough stuff begins. But a couple of questions coming in here, so I'm just coming to these on the fly now. Danny Gormley on YouTube for Johnny. Where is the line to be drawn on the transfer of players between provinces, between maintaining competitiveness versus dilution of a province's identity? This is obviously Leinster have been stocking up the various provinces with players that have come through there.
Yeah, it's a hard one, isn't it? Because obviously I'm, you know, obviously very split, being I want what's best for Ireland, but I also want what's best for Leinster, and it's that balance really, in terms of, like, obviously if a guy is third choice with a province, but he's good enough to be first or second with another province, yeah, you can see it, and you'll see players wanting to leave at that stage. I think there's been players at Leinster where they've, you know, you can't force someone to move. You know, the players got to want to buy into it, and you know, so it's. A lot has been made of the IRFU's role in that, but ultimately if a player just goes, no, I'm staying where I am, as maybe Ross Byrne might have done, as opposed to Joey who said, yeah, maybe I'm better off going, well then that's what's going to happen, and that's what happens in every line of sport. But you know, hopefully, you know, obviously I want Leinster to be as strong as possible, and hopefully we can continue to hold on to these to younger guys.
Philip Quillen Donnelly on YouTube says, the other morning Alan Quinlan discussed whether Ireland should follow New Zealand in terms of letting players take a year sabbatical like Dan Carter, etc., etc., in our case Johnny Murray, etc. Your thoughts?
I've had my sabbatical.
Is that how you're viewing it, is it?
I am now, yeah.
Hindsight is a great thing.
It was the hardest sabbatical ever, though. I played about 4 or 5 games or something like that.
Not your typical sort of 6 months in New York.
Exactly, yeah.
Do you regret that, or are you kind of, I mean, I know you've spoken about it before, interested to listen to your thoughts. You were speaking to Gavin Cummiskey the last few weeks about that and a few other things. Is it maybe it's never going to be a regret, but if you had it back again, would you do it differently?
Well, like, the circumstances were what they were. Like, if I had it back again, I'd have hopefully agreed a contract with the IRFU, and I would have been happy. And I was leaving the best club in Europe at the time, like, coached by Joe, and you know, Leo's captain, some of the best players, you know, Brian and Issa and all these guys. Like, so I didn't want to leave it, and I knew what I was leaving, and that's why I was so upset to do it. But when you take a stand and you know, you say, I'm going to go if this doesn't happen, and it doesn't happen, well then you can't just go, okay, I'll stay anyway.
That's fair enough. Factors outside of your control.
Exactly. So that's what happened, and I haven't made any secrets of that. But this is where I always wanted to be. But if those circumstances happened again with someone else, I'd say, you know, leave, because, you know, you can't just say one thing and then do another. And but when I got there, I threw myself into it. When I got there, I said, right, I'm here for the rest of my career. Like, I know that people say that, you know, things didn't work out, but at the end of that first year, like, they offered me a 5-year contract to stay, like, so I was obviously doing something right. They were, you know, thing, and then obviously when I decided to leave, then things, you know, changed a little bit with maybe the coaches and me, and I ended up taking 3 months off at the start of that year, just after I announced that I was going back to Leinster. I took 3 months off. With I haven't met a neurologist, and yeah, things didn't go sour, but they weren't what they were, and I think maybe people thought, you know, I was back in Dublin already, and which wasn't the case. But No, looking back, I loved my time there off the pitch. I learned French. I had my first kid there, Luca, and we had some great memories, made some great friends.
Yeah, it's class. Everybody should do it for a little time. The meeting the neurologist was the concussion stuff and take a bit of a breather. Was that I can't quite remember the details of that. Was that
Yeah, I had a few knocks over the end of that season where I haven't met this guy. He said, look, it's like I wasn't suffering badly or anything like that. It was a sort of mandatory meeting with this guy.
Yeah.
And in hindsight, it was great because you get a 12-week break and you come back and you know that you're perfect. But in hindsight, it maybe was one of the worst things I did because of the sort of stigma that gets attached to you with concussion. And you talk about concussion and people want to talk about me. You try and insure yourself at the end of every season and you can't get insurance for concussion. And I'm like, well, why? Because you've taken this break, and it was very precautionary, but
that shouldn't be a failing on you, though. You took a precautionary measure for your health, and the fact that you couldn't get insured for concussion is outrageous. When you think about it, because it feeds into the psyche of it's just going to make players, when they are feeling symptoms of concussion, to not say it, which we all know that could snowball into something very different. Yeah,
maybe it isn't. It's not something I plan to talk about this morning. I'm trying to get away from the issue as much as I can. But look, I've been blessed with injuries, and I've had a few bangs in the head over the years. But we'll see. It is probably an issue going down the line with that insurance element of it.
Absolutely, because when you think about it, that somebody, can you get insured for doing your cruciate? And people said that's normal part and parcel. Well, so's banging your head. It should be normalised that this happens, and there should be, like you said, it is what it is. It's just another injury like every other injury.
It is. It is hard though, because there's the grey. You can see a ruptured cruciate on a scan. You can't with a concussion.
Not always, no.
No, and it's so obviously when insurance companies can't see perfect evidence, they can't think that players are 100% honest, all these type of things. It's that's where the trickiness comes in.
A bunch of questions in about Raj to various degrees. Wondering about how...
They're all Adrian's questions. He just told people texting them in.
No, look. Aaron Kelly, does Johnny think that his game improved when he worked under Raj? And if so, in what way? And C. Malone, how would Johnny rank Raj amongst the coaches that he's worked under over his career? A couple of nice easy ones.
Working with Raj, I learnt as much, because Raj was, my first year in Racing, Raj came in and he'll say it himself, he was very much in the learning mode himself. He was getting to grips with the language, he was getting to grips with the systems that they had, and he was in charge of defence the first year. But talking to Raj, when I was in Ireland, or looking at him, watching him for years as a kid growing up, that's where I learned from him. It's nothing he's ever said to me or done. I've leant on him for advice at times, and I sort of asked him, what you think here, what you think there, and that's where I learned from him. But in terms of as a coach to player, I'd say he's a very different coach now. I'd say if he got the Leinster job, next year and I was still there, that I'd probably start learning from him then, because he's had the experience of Canterbury, he's had the experience of Racing, with Dan Carter, for example. So he'll build up these experiences, and then it's probably the younger guys that, if he ever came back to Munster, for example, it's the Joey Carberrys or JJ Hannahans that would get the big benefit of all his coaching experiences then.
Raj coaching Leinster, you just said there without smiling.
Never say never.
We've asked him about it before on the show, and
I'll tell you,
he didn't bite anybody's hand off.
He's wanted Munster come first and harder,
A couple of quick fire ones, because we've kept you longer than we'd planned. Liverpool or Spurs? I think you've kind of probably already indicated this one.
So yes, I actually really admire Liverpool as a club, despite being a Man United fan. But it's just a couple of their supporters, Fergus McFadden mainly. We've got a masseuse guy, Vinny Mulvey, as well, in Liverpool, and he wouldn't have known they were Liverpool supporters before this year.
We all start coming out of the closet.
So it's for those guys that I want Spurs to win. But I think Liverpool are incredible. Those scenes at the end of the Barca game, the semi,
unbelievable.
Jealous, just. It would be unbelievable to be in there,
Hurling or football?
I reckon hurling is probably the most skillful sport in the world. I probably watch more football than hurling, but 50-50.
Did you go too much of it?
I try to. Again, it's hard, you know, in pre-season, for example, is when all the big games are on for us, when the All-Ireland starts, and we're Monday to Friday, you know, training ourselves to the bone, and then obviously you've got a Saturday, Sunday to go to a match, but you know, you've got families as well, so I don't get there too often. I'll go to, like the fair weather supporters, I go to the big ones and put the jersey on and pretend I'm a season-long fan and lifelong
get the
fan.
Snap taken, and that's it.
Yeah. Take the jersey off and then head home. Yeah, there's a few lads that are in that bracket, but no, I love watching it. I have such admiration for all of them. They're incredible athletes, and it's we could learn a lot from them, or we do learn a lot from them.
Who's the best, outside of yourself, who's the best 10 in world rugby at the minute?
Owen Farrell probably. Owen Barrett obviously won World Player of the Year 2 years in a row, and he does things that another out half, you know, there's no other out halves that do it, in terms of his just electrifying speed and how he can change a game in those moments. But I think Owen's proved over the last few years he's a world-class 10, and you know, I love playing with them as a 12. It makes, you know, your job easier when you've got someone feeding you good information like that, and often he was the guy at 10, I was the guy at 12, and absolutely love playing with him. But yeah, I'd say he's up there with the best. You said Sean O'Brien was the best forward in that you played with, I think, after the Pro 14 final. Who's the best back you've ever played with? Brian Issa. Tied. Brian probably. Just nudges it. Yeah. And finally, Fontaine's DC or the Furies? Say that again? I think he might be in the question. Fontaine's DC or the Furies? The fact that you're looking at it likely says the Fontaine's DC are like this new sort of punk rock name that doesn't ring any bells.
I wouldn't worry because I was the same. I have no idea. I listened to the Saw Doctors in One Direction, so what the hell do I know? A boxing question. No comment. Yeah, no winner of that one. Johnny, an absolute pleasure. We've kept you longer than we had planned to, but thanks a million for coming in. Really enjoyed the chat, and enjoyed the downtime in so much as it's going to be. Thanks a million. Cheers. Johnny Sexton there. Plenty more to come. We're going to have John Duggan in the studio very shortly too. He's going to bring some Tottenham memorabilia with him, so that's on the way. But ahead of Saturday's Champions League final, John Giles was on the show last night, as he is every Thursday, and here he is explaining why Harry Kane possesses too much authority in the Spurs dressing room.
In your mind, though, is Harry Kane a player that can affect things off the bench, particularly if he hasn't played that well?
No. And to be quite honest, he shouldn't be allowed to do anything from the bench. I was a bit disappointed, actually, at the reading about the semi-final when they won in Amsterdam, that Harry Kane gave a big team talk at half-time. In my experience, Richie, I've never known that. I played under Matt Busby and Don Reevy, and for a short time after Brian Clough. Nobody was allowed to talk at half-time. That was the manager's job, and I was amazed at that, because Harry Kane wasn't playing. He wasn't even playing. You know, the manager has to do that, and it was given too much power, in my opinion, to Harry Kane, a player. Yeah. He shouldn't be allowed to now, I know they went out and won in the second half, but Harry Kane wasn't even playing, and he's allowed to give a team talk to, he wasn't paying compliments to them either. He was having a go at them. You know, in my experience, it was Sir Matt Busby or Don Reevy. He said, hang on a minute, just sit down there for a minute. This is my job, I'll do this. I was amazed at that, really amazed at it. So any player that I've played with in top teams, any one player never had the power to do that above the manager.
It's John Giles on the show last night, previewing the Champions League final. 3-0 is generally what people are saying. John Duggan?
I think Liverpool will win.
Right.
I think they might win 1-0. It'll be my professional prediction. So look, you hope for the best, though. It's like a bonus territory. Tottenham have ended up in Saturn or Jupiter, having been generally a Venus team, you know.
What is the case for Tottenham winning this game? Like, Harry Kane starts, is in some sort of inspired form, the occasion is a bit too much for Liverpool, or like, what's the case for a Tottenham win here?
I think it's keeping it tight. I don't think Tottenham will be able to cope if Liverpool score early goals. Liverpool are a burst team, they're a momentum team. They feed off their fans, they feed off their manager. And I think Tottenham, if they can keep it tight in the second half, if it's a close game, then they could get it. I think they need to hammer the hammer. They need to attack Liverpool's strengths, which are their fullbacks. Alexander-Arnold and Robertson have had 23 assists, I think, this season. Tottenham struggle against them at Anfield. Pochettino's very good at changing his tactics during matches. So I think Tottenham almost need to play a 4-4-2. They need to flood the midfield a bit and maybe play some aerial balls at pace into the likes of Son and Máire if they do start, or into Kane to keep Van Dijk occupied, because we don't want Van Dijk lording it at the back. So do you start Kane? Maybe not. Maybe.
You think?
Yeah, like I think his ratio is 121 goals in 185 games. So he's been a Golden Boot winner twice in the Premier League. He's obviously Golden Boot winner of the World Cup. I think the medical staff surely should know, and he should know after 2 months out, how fit he is. So if he is on the good side of fit, I think he has to start. Who'd you leave out? That's a tricky one. And I think if Kane does start, Son or Máire will probably have to go. I'd worry a little bit about Tottenham's central part of the midfield, as if it's Sissoko or Ali, or Sissoko and Dyer, and I'd worry about Trippier. So I think Liverpool's 1-11 is stronger. So Liverpool, I think where we could make hay is them maybe feeling the occasion in the second half if it's tight.
Yeah.
And do the Liverpool leaking thing.
Well, they lost last year's final. They lost the league that they played brilliant football in by a point. That was very unlucky, I felt, for Liverpool. They finished the season extremely well, and the pressure is on them. And even as great as these players are as professionals, it's still a cup final. And it is still open to chance. We saw that with Manchester City at home against Tottenham, that they conceded 2 goals quite sloppily. Then they had their surge, but then Tottenham came back in the second half. We saw Ajax falter in the second half in Amsterdam. Liverpool were lucky, I thought, in Barcelona to lose 3-0. But Liverpool did lose 3 games.
Unlucky.
They were unlucky to lose 3-0. They did lose 3 games in the group stage. On a day, if Liverpool need to underperform and Spurs need to overperform, I think, for Tottenham to win. But it is possible. Tottenham on their day can beat anybody, but Tottenham's on their day is less frequent than Liverpool's on their day. That'll be my take on it.
Come on, you Spurs, says Peter Breen on Facebook. A lot of people getting into the chat. I have to say, as a neutral, it doesn't really I think I'd probably lean on the side of wanting to see Liverpool to win. Sorry, John. I don't really know why, but slightly leaning that way. I'm really looking forward to it. It's a game that I really can't wait to sit down and have a proper good look at. Are you sort of slightly more apprehensive about it, or because you're involved? Is it?
I'm not feeling quite calm, because I suppose I didn't know if I was going or not, and that is in itself, it's preying on your mind. Am I going? The logistics of that, and I haven't really thought about it. And my kind of journey as a Spurs fan this season has been all about bonus territory, because Spurs are a team I've supported for 32 and a half years, and they've always generally let you down. They've been a cup team. Spursy. I don't even like that phrase. I've got a programme here. My first game at Tottenham Hotspur was 1988, 31 years ago, Easter 1988. First time in an Aer Lingus flight to London. They lost 1-0 to Portsmouth. This was when they had the fences at terraces, this kind of thing.
You're a bone of this is proof of your credentials.
I also have a programme here, a game against Liverpool the following year, when Peter Beardsley and John Aldred scored for Liverpool, a 2-1 win for Liverpool at White Hart Lane. So
names: Paul Gascoigne, Ray Houghton, John Aldridge, they're all there.
I am a legitimate Spurs fan. I've also got all the tickets over the years. So I've got a lovely kind of a cockerel crest here.
Can I just say, by the way, sorry to interrupt, look at the photograph in the front of that. You just wouldn't see that these days.
No.
It's two players that you can't. It's just a crunching tackle. Let's not worry too much about who the players are.
It's. I think Brian Kilcline is one of them, and I think that might be Paul Stewart.
Right. All right.
That's my. And I hadn't thought of that before. So you're kind of going through tickets through the years, So this is the Portsmouth one. This is 1988 against Portsmouth. There's the Ajax game, the most recent one I was at, the Lucas Moura game.
Look at the state of how great the tickets were previously. All concert tickets that you have that actually look like concert tickets, and then the generic sort of photograph.
League Cup final loss to Chelsea. AC Milan in the Champions League. That was their first season they were in the Champions League. That was great. I got into the director's box for Manchester United game. Ferguson was ahead of me, and I'm not going to tell you how I got in, but I got in. That was
what was the food like?
John O'Shea ended up playing in goal, which
was the game, was it?
United won 4-0, and that was United at their peak. They were brilliant. Like they had
They'd used up all their subs. And people got sent off.
Yeah, and Vidic and Ferdinand, like Scholes, Ronaldo was playing. They were great. A 5-4 loss to Arsenal at
Made a
White Hart
couple of
Lane.
saves as well, I think, if I'm right.
He did, yeah. They were all like singing his name and everything. It was great.
So how did you get into the director's box?
I can't tell because I'll probably end up in trouble. But you know, it was a bit of roguish behaviour.
That's always the best way.
Bohemians, you know, like bad games in the
pre-season friendly, was it?
Yeah, bad games in the 90s, like goalless draws. Shelburne at Togga Park, 1991. Bohemians in 1989. At Daleyman Park. Yeah, so yeah, lots of great memories and a few Liverpool games in there as well. So. It's been a long journey, and as I think we were talking about there, it is bonus territory. I can't believe Tottenham are in a Champions League final. It's like, in my lifetime, it's the biggest game. They won the double in 1961. They've only won 2 leagues, 51 and 61, but it is the biggest game of my lifetime.
Can I put it to you this way? It feels that if Tottenham lose, that the fans will be like, well, sure, look, fair enough. You know, bonus territory, our season really deserve it. Whereas it feels if Liverpool lose, people will be absolutely devastated at having missed out in the Premier League, favourites for the Champions League. That would be my view on it.
I would agree with that. I think Liverpool can count themselves. I think Tottenham will feel the way Liverpool felt if they lose, the way Liverpool felt about losing the league. That they had a great run, and whereas I think if Liverpool now are expected to win, they're on paper the better team. They're 26 points ahead of Spurs in the Premier League. And if they don't win tomorrow, that'll be a big blow for Jurgen Klopp. He's lost 6 finals in a row. Last year, you can say Real Madrid were expected to win. Karius made a howler, and then Salah was, you know, Ramos was naughty, and then Bale scored an unbelievable goal. And they've sorted out a few things. They've sorted out the goalkeeper, Alisson. They've got Van Dijk into central defence. I was even looking back at the teams when Spurs beat Liverpool 4-1 18 months ago. Liverpool are a better team now. Chan was playing. They have a better team now. And those wing-backs are the key, I think. Yeah.
I'm going for 2-1 Liverpool and Alderweireld OG in added time.
Yeah, and it probably will be his last game for the club, Alderweireld. So I'm a bit. I mean, for Tottenham, I think things are good. I mean, people are going well. They might never get here again. I've been at the new stadium. It is the best stadium I've ever been in, and that is not a biased assessment. Yeah. It is an incredible stadium. They will spend money. They will be in the Champions League next season. They do need to improve their wage structure. They're spending only half the wages of Manchester United. I don't think it's sustainable for Tottenham to be competing against the likes of Manchester City, PSG, Barca, Real, and even Liverpool in this market. But it just shows you how well Pochettino's done. Pochettino and Klopp quite similar, motivators, obsessives, tactically astute. I'm quite calm about it at the moment, but I'm sure by tomorrow night I'll be going up the walls.
How long will they keep Pochettino?
I think I know he said more Treasa that if they win, he could just go back to Argentina because he'd have nothing left to achieve. That is actually possible, I think, because he would have reached the summit. I think if they lose and he gets the support from Daniel Levy and Joe Lewis, the people behind the club, financially and regarding a plan here, then I think he will stay. Because I think Tottenham, if they invested, if they spent sensibly, but if they spent in a way to compete with the elite clubs in global football, then I think Tottenham could be a league-winning team in a few years, especially if Pep leaves Manchester City and Manchester City goes through a bit of a transitionary phase. When they were having all these kind of greedy plans for a Super League in Europe a few years ago, Tottenham weren't even in it. Now they're in it, whereas Arsenal, it's funny, Tottenham can't go down the Arsenal road, blaming everything on the stadium. Well, no, it's the stadium's fault. We owe $1 billion, we owe this, and we owe that. I think Tottenham are going to be making £800,000 sterling on every match at the stadium. They're having the Champions Cup final there. They're having NFL games there. They've got their retractable pitch. It is state of the art. So, like, even if they won tomorrow night, it would be great for attracting players to the club. It would be great for that. But I don't think it's going to be a huge. We're never going to be back here again. I think for Liverpool, it would be. How do you kind of pick yourself up if Liverpool lose tomorrow night?
One last one. Are Tottenham a top, outside of the blindingly obvious fact that they're in the Champions League final, are they a top 6 European team currently?
Maybe a top 8 team, is that? I'm being too...
No, I think that's fair, yeah.
I don't know.
It'd be a squeeze, wouldn't it?
It'd be a squeeze, yeah. I think in terms of rankings around money and that kind of value, they're 10th.
Right. Okay.
So I read they were 10th.
Significantly punched above their weight.
Significantly, with Harry Kane injured. I was in Amsterdam, and the way I think Harry Kane very very succinctly put it. Guys, at half-time, we're playing a weaker Premier League team here, and then they went out and they won. And it really is down to the manager. We've come out of the Ronaldo and the Messi era here. The Ronaldo and the Messi era probably lasted a decade. We're now talking about systems. Wijnaldum, Origi starring in semi-finals, Máire, Son, good players, but not maybe Ronaldo, Messi level. And it's not all about the Salah, it's not all about the Kane, it's about the bigger of the whole, and I think that is down to the ability of the coaches, in Pochettino's case, to improve players. So talking about Sissoko as the player of the year, Sissoko.
I know, yeah.
So, but I do think since it went to Saturdays, guys, the Champions League has become, I think Miguel Delaney was referencing it, almost like the Super Bowl of football now. It has become the biggest club game in the world. We got the World Cup final, and you can feel it. I can feel like this is bigger now. So bring it on.
Liverpool, but not by much.
1-0, but come on, you Spurs. Head 1-0 Liverpool. Heart, well, heart is I'm running around Dublin tomorrow night, and people are, you can all join me. I'll be on Twitter. I'll tell you where I am.
We will know if Tottenham win. We'll definitely know where you are, John. Thanks a million.
All right, guys.
Thanks,
Cheers.
John Duggan, as always. And Neil Tracy's on the way very shortly to let us know what's happening in the world of live sport. But before that, at 9:30 on this Friday morning, it's the hurling show. Shane Stapleton was with this week with Michael Verney and Will O'Callaghan, and put the question to his panellists about which has been better so far, the Leinster or the Munster Championship.
Actually, lads, which is better so far, Munster or Leinster?
Sure, that's a no-brainer, really. Munster has been
but Leinster,
better quality of games. Leinster probably the more exciting.
Leinster's set up for some finale now.
Unreal, yeah.
There's Galway against Kilkenny, Galway against Dublin against Galway. Galway have to go to Parnell Park. Wexford against Kilkenny. I'll give you an old stat. The average total points per game in Leinster versus Munster. So what would you guess it is?
Total points per game between the two teams. Oh Jesus! In Munster,
we've had some big scores. Like Tipperary alone have
50-ish, 50, I'd say.
50.
What would you say it is in Leinster?
Oh, it must be around 30 probably.
I'd say
that'd be like 15 points each.
Sorry, it'd be more like 40 probably,
yeah. So what it is 52.8 points per game in Munster, 46.2 in Leinster.
Oh, I thought it'd be bigger.
Higher than I thought,
But still a sizable enough difference.
Yeah.
If you think now, there have only been 5 games in Leinster and only 4 in Munster, but they're far more high scoring in general.
Yeah, if hurling's your bag, you want to check that out. The full show up on offtheball.com. Neil Tracy, good morning to you.
Morning, guys. How are you doing?
How goes it?
Not too bad now. Not too bad.
Munster, are you Munster, or what does our jury say? What's better, the Munster or Leinster Hurling Championship?
Well, I'm Limerick, so Munster Hurling Championship. Definitely.
Yeah.
And I'm Galway, so I don't know what I'm talking about. I don't know what
you need to go for
I'm in.
Leinster, that's it. What's happening with Limerick?
We'll find out on Sunday, I think, is the best way of putting it.
Is that it?
I think Cork just worked it out in the second half of that game a couple of weeks back. And I think, as you said earlier on, a crucial game for both teams, really. Waterford probably more so because, if they lose, that's essentially it for them. But, Limerick do have the chance to get back going again. Big winners against Waterford last year and in the league final. But
they'll be all right,
just
kids.
That game, they'll be all right, kid. But you just would have it just would plant a couple of seeds of doubt in your head after the loss against Cork. Chance for revenge against Cork, though, in the football tomorrow night.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
Not that Cork people care about the football, of course. That's the difficulty you're running into there. Champions League is where you're going to kick us off.
Absolutely. Liverpool and Spurs will finalise their preparations today for tomorrow's Champions League final in Madrid. It's going to be Liverpool's 10th European Cup final. They've won 5, and it's the first European Cup final appearance for Spurs. Spurs manager Mauricio Pochettino still has to decide whether or not to play the fit again Harry Kane up front. Roberto Firmino, though, should be available for Liverpool, having sat out the tail end of the season with an injury of his own. The sides have their final training sessions today at the Wanda Metropolitano Stadium, while the managers will hold their final press conferences as well. Earlier this week, Liverpool manager Jurgen Klopp said that despite losing 2 Champions League finals before, this year it's his best team yet.
I've never been part of a final with a better team than this. That's true. But in a different times, for different reasons, my teams were good as well. And I'm not so surprised because the boys are, how we call it, mix up potential with attitude in the best way I ever fancied. I ever witnessed. I ever saw, experienced. So that's just brilliant.
Antonio Conte is back in management after his gap year. The former Chelsea manager has been given the job at Inter Milan. He signed a 3-year contract at the San Siro, replacing Luciano Spalletti, who was sacked yesterday despite securing Champions League football for Inter. Here at home, Shamrock Rovers aren't in action tonight, so Dundalk can go 3 points clear at the top of the SSE Electricity League Premier Division. That's if they overcome Sligo Rovers at Oriel Park this evening. Cork City make the trip to Inchicore to take on St Pat's, and it's Bohemians against Finn Harps at Dalymount Park. All of those games kicking off at 7:45.
Next up, the story that nobody's talking about.
except us and most other people. Yeah. But Katie Taylor and Delphine Pursoon will have their weigh-ins this evening.
Tomorrow, is she?
What?
Who? Katie Taylor fighting tomorrow? Who?
Yeah, she's a boxer.
I never heard of that.
Where's she from?
She's got a fight. And she's fighting tomorrow.
We're getting very petty here, aren't we? Never cross a journalist, I think, is the best way of putting it. We're nothing if not petty. Anyway, Katie Taylor and Delphine Pursoon will have their weigh-ins tonight in New York ahead of tomorrow's World Lightweight Unification fight at Madison Square Garden in New York. Taylor's defending her WBA, IBF and World or WBO titles and looking to add the remaining belts. A bit of pre-fight niggle has emerged, as you discussed earlier on. Pursoon's manager labelling the Taylor camp disrespectful over a mix-up which led to Pursoon having to change hotels this week. But earlier this week, Taylor said it doesn't get any bigger than this.
This is by far the biggest night in my career. This is the pinnacle of boxing to have all 5 belts. The Ring Magazine belts, as you said, is up for grabs as well. This is exactly what every fighter dreams of, really. So I don't understand how big this fight is, the magnitude of this event, but I can't wait for this. This is why I box. These are the fights that I've always wanted, and I'm ready to make history.
It's bigger than London 2012, she had said.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, I heard that during the week. I was like, oh, that's surprising.
I think
given the... Who am I to tell Katie Taylor?
Exactly.
The biggest fight of her career, by the way. I will preface it with that. But just given what she had done for that sport to get it to that point, and then having seen it right out to win the thing, there are elements of what she's doing here that are in the same vein, but not as significant, I don't think. But look,
I think maybe on the flip side, then so many people might have thought she was finished after Rio in 2016, and less than 3 years later to be on the brink of winning every single belt on offer in the professional game.
Exactly, yeah, because she looked like she was finished. And actually, speaking of, I know we were talking about post-match interviews earlier this morning, but what a lady. Do you remember that interview she did with Joe Stack after Rio went so wrong? And her heart was breaking in front of us all. I think everybody just wanted to jump into the screen and give her a big hug and tell her, you owe us nothing as a country. So, when your life is falling apart in front of you like that and you can still stand up and magnanimously try and discuss your feelings and dissect it, what a woman. She's just amazing. She's such a role model. So like Adrian said, who are we to say what her biggest fight is? If she says it's something on the base spray seafront, that's her biggest
Elsewhere in golf, Leona Maguire and Stephanie Meadow were well down the leaderboard after day one of the Women's US Open in South Carolina. Maguire is 4 over par while Stephanie Meadow carded a 3 over 74. Japan's Mamiko Higa leads on 6 under. Rory McIlroy is already 10 shots off the pace ahead of round 2 at the Memorial Tournament on the PGA Tour in Ohio. Ryan Moore leads the way on 7 under. McIlroy had 2 double bogeys in his opening round. Tiger Woods, meanwhile, is 2 under. Kerry's senior football manager Peter Keane welcomes back James O'Donoghue and David Moore into his starting 15 for tomorrow's Munster semi-final against Clare at Cusack Park. Shane Ryan, Gavin Crowley, Adrian Spillane and Diarmuid O'Connor are the championship debutants. In total there are 7 changes from the team that started the league final against Mayo, 8 changes from the side that lined out in Kerry's last championship game in the Super 8s last August. Kerry going for a 7th Munster title in a row. Both semi-finals in Munster tomorrow evening, by the way. Cork hosting Limerick in the other one at Porky Rin. Limerick looking to reach their first Munster final in 9 years. Meanwhile, the Connacht Minor Football Championship sees 2 games today. Sligo take on Mayo at Markievicz Park and it's Roscommon up against Leitrim at Dr. Hyde Park. Both matches start at 7:30. In tennis at the French Open, Rafael Nadal's quest for a 12th Grand Slam on the clay continues today. He's in 3rd round action against 27th seed David Goffin. Roger Federer is also in action today against Norway's Casper Ruud. While in the women's singles, the first game up on the Philip Chartier court today is the 2nd seed Karolina Pliskova taking on Petra Martic of Croatia. And finally, trainer Aidan O'Brien has won both the English 1,000 and 2,000 guineas already this season, and he holds strong claims in the next classic, the Oaks, with Pink Dogwood today. 4:30 is the post time at Epsom, and there's also horse racing meetings here at home in Tramore and Downroyal.
Did you see the Ben Stokes catch?
I did. Unbelievable.
Right, fair enough.
Okay.
Did you not see it?
No, I did see it.
Oh. Like, what's the big deal?
Grand, yeah.
Oh my God.
Shrug. They're like,
have you ever tried to catch a cricket ball?
Yeah, they're heavy. They're heavy.
They are. Like, I tried catching one from about 5 feet once. I thought I broke all my fingers.
Like, it was a good catch. It was been described as maybe the greatest catch of all time, though.
I mean, again, who am I to argue? I don't have extensive cricket
how many
knowledge.
cricket catches have you seen?
I've seen plenty, you know, like YouTube highlights reels or those kind of things, but that was amazing.
Yeah, it was great.
This isn't going to be another Seamus Coleman, is it?
I'm going to do some analysis of this.
Deep analysis of Ben Stokes.
I need to mention as well, and that Off the Ball have been, I'm sure everybody's fully aware at this stage, I've been challenged to take on a triathlon, and we're doing that in 15 days' time. He says extremely apprehensively. It's happening in Dunmore, in Waterford. It's we've been challenged by BMW and Triathlon Ireland. It's hashtag Try for Pieta as well, so raising money for a really good cause for Pieta House. More information on all that, you can check out triathlonireland.com, and you'll see a link there as well. And for more on the hashtag Try for Pieta, BMW, proud partner of Triathlon Ireland, title sponsor of the BMW Triathlon National Series, which is 17 of the most exciting triathlon races in Ireland. And doing a triathlon, this is what it says here in front of me, is easier than you think. People of all ages and abilities can take part. So I'm doing the swimming leg, and
I'm sure it's really easy, isn't it? I'm sure it's grand.
I'm not saying anything in case I get roped in.
So I'm up to 16 laps now continuously in the pool. 30 laps would be the distance.
30 laps is what you have to...
That would be the
That's what you have to hit.
Major caveat, I'm doing it in the pool, and the triathlon unfortunately is not happening in a pool, so it's a totally different kettle of fish when you're out in the open water.
Yeah.
But I've gone from, I was maybe 10 days ago, I was at 8 lengths was the most I could do. Then I got to 10 lengths, and then went out on Monday and did 16. Delighted with myself.
That's progress. It's
but
huge progress.
I haven't been back since. I need to get in today. So I mean, I'm just...
What's the target today? 18, 20?
No, if I could repeat 16, I'd be delighted. I started off that run sort of trying to manage. I was like, this is an 8, I'm going to do 8 now. And I was like, I don't feel too bad, I'll do 10. I'll keep going. So I don't want to... I think if I start off saying here I'm going to do 16, they'll have to pull me out of the pool. Do you know what I mean? So we'll see how we go.
Will you be swimming with the tide? Against the tide?
These are all excellent questions, Máire Treasa. Excellent questions. Which obviously means I have no answer. But yeah, you run you start at the beach and you run in. So you swim out, swim parallel, swim back in again.
Okay.
There'll be a fair bit of treading water, I'd imagine, from my point of view. But look, I don't mind. I've already flagged that I expect to be the last person out of the water. As long as I get out of the water, I'll be happy. So that's my expectations for today. Máire Treasa, really enjoyed your company this morning. Thanks a million for that. It was great. Neil, thanks a lot for that.
You're welcome.
Enjoy your weekends, whatever you're up to. And to you too, thanks a million for tuning our way this morning. You are watching OTB AM, Ireland's only sports breakfast show. We're live on OTB.com, YouTube, Twitter, Facebook, every morning from 7:30. The show available as well, post-show as a podcast. You can search OTB AM on your podcast app or on Spotify. So live as well from 7 o'clock tonight. Don't forget about that. Friday night racing and all the usuals as well. There may even be a crappy quiz coming your way a little bit later on the radio. So we're going to leave you with this. It's Dermot Ling. This is a lovely little series. It's the latest of which sees Dermot catching up with the Clare All-Ireland winner Podge Collins for the At Clean Coast campaign. You can join us, register your beach clean today at cleancoasts.org. You can check out the hashtags as well, Clean Coasts, and you can follow all the good stuff there. But here's Dermot Ling with Podge Collins. Good morning.
Coca-Cola have teamed up with Clean Coast for this year's Coca-Cola Clean Coast Week. Running from the 1st to the 9th of June, the campaign aims to empower and to encourage local communities around the country to protect our precious maritime resources, something we feel is incredibly important. starting to have. I'm starting to be happy the fact that I'm finished playing hurling. At this stage, I don't have to do that anymore. But yeah, do you want to introduce yourself first?
Yeah, my name is Podge Collins. I'm from Clare. Advocate for going back to the sea. After games, when I get injured, recovery. When it gets a bit warmer, it's more of a luxury, really. But it's like, as one woman said to me one day, I was back here. She said, "It's like you're doing your penance, sitting in the water, shivering." I think I had a dodgy hamstring at the time when I was trying to get it right. So there's something great about it. But the natural seawater, you can't beat it for the body, for the head, everything.
€35 they're spending in the Midlands for seaweed baths, and you only have to come here.
Yeah.
We'll go for a stroll along the beach, I think. Come on. So some of the most spectacular coastline in the country, Podge, is here. Like, what does it mean to you?
We came back here quite a lot as kids, and even outside of the, let's say, hurling and football side of it, there was like going back to Kilkee and jumping off the diving boards, the beach, like the pier, swimming across. Like it's something very special. When you do see litter on it, it's something you'd wonder, like, how could someone put it there, and why would you put it there? And in fairness to, let's say, people, I suppose, the community, there are bins outside beaches now, and it's about knowing, like, let's say, what to put in where. And there's, like, I saw 4 kind of recycling bins when I drove in here today, and it's moving that way. And
definitely, yeah. How about family, Podge? You know, your dad's been involved, obviously, at a high level, but what's it been like growing up in family here in Clare?
Yeah, I suppose, like anything, it's kind of whatever your family you're into, you'll inevitably get into. If you're into swimming, you're probably into swimming. My parents are GA, so I got into GA, and same with my brothers. So, like, in the back garden from when we were 3-4 years of age, we were competing with each other, playing hurling, playing games, and so that's where I first learned about GA and competitions. So it's something I obviously always enjoyed, and that's just the nature of it. Whatever your parents are into, you'll get into. But it's been a great experience.
I wonder how, do you know, like with these stone walls in the west of Ireland, and they can tell in local areas who built the stone walls by the design. And sometimes I think with hurlers and footballers as well, it's like how you're shaped by your area, how you're shaped, how you move on the field, like how you carry the movements of your family. Fellas would say, geez, you run like Kieran, or maybe for you and Sean, like you just carry these traits through. And yeah, I don't know, it's a great thing to observe them and to see them repeated or something. I don't know what it is, but it's
especially in local communities, they always, like, whatever you do negatively, if your brother does the same, they'll always give out to you about it. Your brother's the same. But it's definitely interesting. Like, and even after we won a county final, I remember a lad coming into the dressing room, and he must have been close to 90, and he was like, "Listen, well done today." I was looking up at man of the match that day. He's like, "Well done today. You played well. You're good, but you'll never be as good as your father was."
This is looking in the end, Podge.
Thanks very much.
So we'll say from the 1st to the 9th of June, we've got people volunteering all over the country, and coming from the biggest volunteer organisation in the country. Would you do it first?
Like, listen, I'll be definitely taking part in it over the course of from the 1st to the 9th. And I think that if everyone just did a small bit just along the coast, it'd make a massive difference, is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah.
It's like, we're lucky enough that it might be a big problem across all of Ireland, but like, when you look at it here, there are a few bits and pieces around, but I feel it's very manageable. If you did get a good group together for a couple of hours, you'd have it sorted, place be clean, and people start thinking about then a lot more when they come to the beach next time, if they're with their kids, if they're with their family. If a wrapper blows off, they're more thinking, I better just grab it, just go after it and grab it, or whatever.
I know what it's like to be going around collecting somebody else's.
And like, the small things that we can do is, like, let's say, these kind of things, like when you are going to the beach for the day, like, make sure that whether you're putting in your green bin at home or your blue bin or whatever it may be, make sure you're not leaving it on the beach anyway, that's for sure. We all know that's wrong.
During the week, Coca-Cola, along with partners on Taschke and Keep Northern Ireland Beautiful, are encouraging communities around the country to go out and get involved in keeping our waterways and our coastlines free of litter. Litter is bad for our maritime environment. This much we all know. So it's up to each of us to dispose of our litter responsibly. For further information on the week's events, check out cleancoast.org and liveherelovehere.org. Got a meal of Mahagoo.